Ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. Trusty Ape, over here, going off the script. We, jumping on a bandwagon this evening. I hope you're well. I am doing just fine. Okay, so basically, for those who don't know, there's there's been a fair amount of YouTube drama controversy around this guy at Myth Vision podcast, and his decision to kind of stick by another guy who he had on, and I guess this started like a couple years ago. I don't think I was really aware of it, or if I had been, I'd totally forgotten about it. And so I watched, immediately, like as it was unfolding, like I saw the video from Myth Vision pop, and I was like, oh, this is like some clickbait right here, right? And so I waited to watch it, but I like kept it there in my notifications, and then as I was actually watching it, whenever, a little while later, was when all the other videos started popping up. A bunch of people covered it, kind of, right in the aftermath. And I think, probably some of I think the most useful ones that I saw were like Nitty's take and Jefferson Spatchcock's take on this. So I'm not going to actually look at that video proper. So not long after that, I saw that Pine Creek Doug had reposted this interview that he did with Robert Price, which I started getting into. And then there was also a video I found that has Derek on it at the time, interviewing with Pine Creek. So the fact that he was buddying up to Pine Creek back then, I just wonder what was said. Now I haven't watched the one with Derek, and not long after, I saw that Steve McRae had gone on the Non Sequitur show, and it kind of like threw his hat in the ring with him or whatever, like kind of this we stand with Myth Vision type of thing that they did. So I was going to look at these characters kind of on the fringes as well, maybe if we have some time here. So, hey, Cyrax, Halcyonic Kaiju, and I saw Tog in there. Good to see everybody. All right, so I think I want to start off with this video here with Myth Vision from 2 years ago.
Do you want to talk about the...
Oh, that's really loud for me. Hold on.
My friends are having a sleepover without me.
Holy smokes.
Well, we're sleepover experts.
Sorry if that blew your eardrums out too. That was really crazy. Okay.
That's great.
Back to the other one. There we go.
Do you want to talk about the Robert Price thing?
I keep hitting the wrong button. Sorry. Okay, so for the third time, so again, this is from Pine Creek's channel, and we'll go up to like 1.5 here. 1.25. Let's see how fast that is.
Do you want to talk about the Robert Price thing or no?
Dude, it's kind of.
I know, but
what would you like to?
The thing is, we have not talked to each other. Like we've texted each other maybe once.
Right.
Like in the last 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago? It's a long time ago.
Something like 3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember one quite.
I'll talk about anything you want to talk about, but I'll just tell you this: I made the best decision I could possibly make under the circumstances that I'm in and everything that I do in this particular situation, and I've had.
So the story goes, and from everything I've heard, again, I wasn't like there at the time. Well, I was there, but I wasn't paying attention to any of this. Right? Is that Derek has this Robert Price guy on? Some people research him, find out he said some really, said and written some pretty really outrageous and basically racist, bigoted, transphobic shit. Right? Among other things, like. And he's conservative politically, I guess, which he's spoken about. and some people in the community, meaning the woke atheist cult or whatever, signaled to him that he needed to stop having this guy on, and he capitulated at the time, but now has brought him back. That's basically where we're at.
Really, right now, since
Hey, my awesome wife, good to see you.
all that happened, he's made a couple posts from people who've come to me and said he's playing the victim card, like he's a victim in all of this. And for me, right, I'm a normal human being who knows how to communicate with my community. If I said something that offended 90% of the people that I speak to on a daily basis, and I'm like, why is 90% of people thinking this is definitely not good? I mean, go and find any memes of white people or whatever other subject it might be where he's talking this way. It doesn't look good. So let's not make a judgment. Let's not jump to conclusions. All right, Bob, will you at least come back and retract, or at least say, I apologize for the way this looks? I apologize for how this was conveyed. This definitely looks bad. I get it. It was not intended to be that way. Blah, 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 blah. No, there's a way to talk. And when you double down and tell the man who's like one of your sons and his wife, hell no, I will not apologize. I will not. I will double down, and I will make sure that I defend myself. And you sit back and go, what do you do when people have made the statements that your channel is called price vision and other things like that? After a while, you go, they think I think what this guy thinks. And I definitely don't, but I didn't even know how far it went. And I know that you don't even draw all the conclusions that Bob does. Anyone watching that episode should know that. I mean, you were like, cool the guys down, for example, with shooting protesters and stuff. You're like, oh, hold on, what?
Yeah,
No.
there's definitely things that he said were wacky. But I guess my whole thing is to apologize for how it looks. I mean, you would, both of us.
If I said something that looks racist, and 90% of my audience thought, yo, D, this looks pretty racist,
I would still not apologize for it.
you're different than me.
Yeah.
Because I actually care what people think. You don't.
Yeah. True.
You're very bold and blunt, and I do.
So yeah, Doug says he wouldn't apologize either, and then Derek basically says, "Oh well, that's very brave of you. That if you said something, that was right, and it's not just because it's offensive, right? Think about how wrong what you're saying is. Like that's the he says that he thinks that protesters should be shot during BLM. Big love, William. Good to see you. Yeah, like." You can't even admit that if you had said something that may even have been, in poor taste or whatever, like and that's the problem. There's no accountability. Like this person shows no signs of, having any like remorse or any type of empathy for the people he's targeted, right? It's some pretty heinous stuff.
What people think, and this is the problem, is it's not just he's some random guy. Like for you, Doug, I'd invite you on.
And this isn't Derek. This is Derek's friend, but fortunately it's Derek's channel now that, and so he's, he is playing the victim card. He's like, says he's being threatened, right? When really what people are saying is, all right, we're not going to watch your shit anymore, so.
I don't know all the details and in and outs of anything you believe or think in life. You're not close to home. He wasn't just a random scholar that I was interviewing like I do other scholars. He was at home base. What he said impacted my 3 sons and my wife. What he says impacts my business. And by the way, if anyone doesn't know this, I paid him for every episode he's ever been on. Everything he ever did. Employer-employee situations. When they talk about cancel culture.
Hey, Sandy, good to see you.
This cancel culture.
Yeah, that's interesting. Supposedly he's like a close friend of his, but he paid him for his appearances on the podcast, which he then... nearly got canceled for, I don't know, whatever, the claim is there.
That. If I would have canceled him right out the gate because people said, hey, this guy has bad views and I'm not coming on the channel. By the way, it wasn't 30 scholars at once. This is over a cumulative of 2 years that I've had academics tell me, not interested in platforming myself with someone with his kind of views and with the things he said about people in social classes and stuff that I do not line up with. So I said, okay, fine. I kept doing what I did. It works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I kept Dr. Bob and kept going. But I want to get to the point I'm trying to get at. And this is the thing. Once that happened, I made a video. Anyone who goes back to before my crybaby video, I call it a crybaby video. Whatever. I'm crying my eyes out because this really, really, really hurt. It did. The video before that, I doubled down. And said, I don't care what he thinks. I'm going to interview the guy. The next video, I'm crying. And what happened between then and the cry video is what changed the whole game. And then he cut me off. He wrote me and said, "This is really goodbye." And he's the one who told me.
I think you already said all this on one of the videos.
That's funny. So Derek didn't even kick him off the show, like, or whatever. Like, the dude was like, "No, I don't even want to be on your shit." This is really convoluted. Like, I don't know, man. Well, Freeman says, I can see that me and Kevin will disagree about this. I'm a skate. Oh, well, knuckle bump. We can agree to disagree. I don't know. So, I mean, you can always change the channel. That's true in any situation. That's all that I've heard people are basically doing. Now, I will agree there are shady people out there, and they do it for both sides. It's not like just atheists, it's not just the left or whatever, that will go and do shady crap, like try to get your videos flagged and stuff like that. And I don't agree with that. But I think if people are like, hey, I don't want to watch, your shit anymore, and me and my friends aren't going to watch your shit anymore, just letting you know, and you're transparent about it, I don't really see what's wrong with that. I mean, for whatever friggin', it doesn't matter what the reason is. You're free to change the channel.
But my one question I had that was unanswered was he was on a Canadian Catholic show and said some stuff. I don't know if you saw it.
I did not. I don't watch that guy's channel.
One thing he said was that he offered you to leave and just be gone.
Sandy says, I stopped listening to Doug a while back. Other stuff to deal with. Yeah. I don't generally listen to him too much. If I'm still obviously subbed. I had to go and look these videos up or whatever. But I saw that the other one popped. Is my point. So I get notifications, but I don't click on most of them. Unless I hear something spicy about it, or it seems relevant, like in this case, to something that I'm currently interested in, or occasionally if there's like absolutely nothing else on, I will listen to a bit of his politics stream. I considered actually calling him, but I think I did once, but we had a bad connection or something.
Quietly, and then that was it. Is that true?
So let me tell you the chronology. I almost made a video about this, not for YouTube, but for Facebook, because I've had a few people approach me going, because he's written things, he's saying things after the fact that makes me feel like maybe I need to respond so people understand. There's still crap going on in drama. I don't even care.
See, I'm interested to know what's going on in these guys' heads, especially because they're on the fringes, like conservative atheist is kind of a strange minority, right? And so they go and then they bond with these other Christians. Basically they're like, I'd rather hang out with a Christian than an atheist and all this shit, which is actually what Steve McRae is going to say in his stream that I was listening to as well. So.
To get into, but I will, for the sake of the audience, and this can get out for everybody to see. The first things first, that video before I cried, 4 days before I made the cry video, called Dr. Bob. And I said, Bob, I have academics that are approaching me and making a big fuss out of some of the things you said. And they've sent me these screenshots, these images, these memes, you name it. And they said, these look racist, right? This is like obvious bigotry. They didn't say look racist. Did Jesus really what it looked like? And I'm sitting here going, well, Bob's an old man. Maybe you're misunderstanding him. The way I would analogize this is a boyfriend who's dating a girl who may not be the best girlfriend. And people are saying, hey, by the way, she's cheating on you. Now, the people screaming cancel culture are looking at the girlfriend, or the people screaming cancel culture are looking at the friends of the friend who are saying, hey, she's cheating on you as cancel culture. There's some problems. Bob Price has some really radical views. You should really pay attention to this. I'm not coming on that platform as long as that guy's on there. So I went and made the video. Right.
And so that's another issue there is like these other scholars who he would have on, like Dr. Josh Bowen and stuff, are now going to also dissociate with him because he still works with this Price guy, so it does cost him on that end, and people care who you're affiliated with. Like if you're affiliated with neo-Nazis, a lot of people aren't going to be okay with that. That's a given. And it's not like canceling for people who choose to dissociate from you, if that's what they feel they need to do. Tug says, I need CD donations. Just bought $80 worth of used CDs for the station. Nice. Gonna make a killer one. Looking forward to it, buddy.
doubled down and said, hey, he's still coming on. I don't care because what Bob thinks isn't what I think. So then I call Bob. When I called him and told him, this looks racist to me, Bob. This looks racist to me and my wife. This doesn't look good.
And here he is, a couple years ago, like acknowledging, oh yeah, this looks racist. Like, all right,
This needs to be addressed.
That was a sign.
Because I run a business too. And this is at home. I mean, this is the center of all of this. And he told me, I'm not, I'll just step away. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to have anything to do with myth fishing anymore.
Okay.
I was like, okay, that's fine. I was like, look, that's fine. This is 4 days before all that all happened.
Okay, so he was telling the truth then on Canadian Catholic, because that's exactly what he said. He said before.
Yeah, he offered to step down, and I doubled down and said, no, don't worry about it. I'm going to double down. You don't have to go anywhere. So that video that I made before the cry video, if you go back and my videos are chronology.
Yeah, I got it up
right
here.
Back.
But what?
Okay.
So the reason why you didn't let him just step down, walk away quietly, is because you weren't aware of his views?
I wasn't aware of the totality of everything there, but also the fact that he wasn't willing to compromise in any way, not even slightly, not change his views, but to show some type of empathy to the crowd he's discussing this with, because I'm not convinced by his arguments on your show.
Yeah,
his arguments on your show sounded like apologetics. Even his thug use of the term from the 1800s. Well, why don't we use the N-word anymore in its original context?
I understand, Derek. Derek. But you and I would never apologize for saying that we don't.
So Derek understands the argument. And at this point, when he's doing this, he's actually acting like he's taking that position, right? It was really strange considering the recent turn of events,
Jesus rose from the dead, right? And that hurts people. Like if we tell people that their inner testimony of the Holy Spirit is not real, and this is their own personal testimony, they know that Jesus lives in their heart, and we say, no, this is all upstairs. Mm-hmm. We're hurting them probably more so than I think calling someone a racist epithet, because we're talking about eternal life here. Mm-hmm. And so should we? So
now this recent one, he says, no, I know my friend, he's not a racist, whatever he said, just get over it. Yeah. He's taking this completely different position.
For believing that Jesus didn't rise from the dead.
So how is that equating to the fact that every meme he does is on black people? He never makes them about white people or any other color. He's always coming after people of color with these particular memes that are harsh, with no empathy. You should cry for your thug son. He's a worthless human being, blah, blah, blah. Why aren't there memes floating around of other colors? Why is it only people of color that
I don't know.
And this is coming from...
How many memes
let me just point this out.
Memes does he
that
make?
Analogy, obviously not a lot, but the ones he makes are always of people of color. That when he's addressing social issues, it's always people of color. Now, here's the deal. This is the thing I was trying to get about that analogy with the girlfriend-boyfriend. I'm defending my girlfriend. I'm defending the one I love, Bob Price. I'm defending him at all costs, even by putting myself on the cross, ready.
It's really weird that he has to use the analogy of a boyfriend and girlfriend for some reason. It's just business associations, and that's all it has to be. You don't have to make it a relationship. It's weird, bro.
Myself for the sake of Bob on this particular matter. When I realized that he didn't even care how this was going to impact me and my own family in this, and that I don't agree with his values on this, I don't align myself with his views, I thought to myself, he's not even willing to somehow compromise, and that's his beliefs, his prerogative. So when I heard that, and all of this being said, and people go, you canceled him. No.
And so Yuri's like, he actually believes this shit. And he does, for the most part. I think from what I've heard of him, he's, he like to shock people as well. But he genuinely believes most of this shit,
He canceled himself.
And we'll hear it from him when we go to the next video.
He chose to make the stand and say, I'm going to be done.
Well, I guess my question would be, why not, like when he offered just to walk away quietly, and then you heard the totality of it all, why not just say, hey, Bob, I want to take you up on your offer. Just walk away quietly.
So that was what I initially did. Okay. I also made the decision myself that night when I called him on the phone after he did your interview that day and told him that we're not going to have you on Midvision. By the way, we're still going to be friends off air. I still want to help you out to make sure you're not in a bad spot, so you have some financial ways of making money by doing online courses and stuff. I still wanted to be friends with him. I'm going through this transition when you're breaking up with that girlfriend. You don't want to tell her completely no, but you're kind of like, I'm still trying to be friends with Bob, but I can't have him associated with my platform anymore.
Right. He just walks away quietly.
That's what the goal was initially. But I felt like I needed to make that video where I cried.
Why?
I felt like I needed to let people know and take a stand and say, listen, this was too
far. And I think this is why
it's performative. That's why. And it's the same reason he all of a sudden goes hardline the other way, and he has to be very dramatic with his approach. I think a lot of it is performative. People say he's really just gonna start catering to a different audience. He's gonna start catering to these conservative atheist guys, who are over here on the fringes, and that's going to turn him, basically onto the alt-right crowd. It's a gimmick. He's actually going to get more clicks out of it, maybe, potentially. Hey, Atheist Mo, good to see you.
Some people are like, some people support you in that, and some people don't. And I think the reason why some people don't is because they view you as sort of kowtowing to that, whatever you want to call it, woke crowd, to say, hey, look, I'm on your side.
I'd rather be awake than asleep.
But was that part?
That's the kind of derogatory slant and the terms being thrown around. Listen, I'm not even a very political guy. Like, people don't even realize this about me. They don't even know that. But sure, they can say whatever they want. I mean, I'm a public figure. And instead of quietly walking away and no longer having Bob Price, people going, where's Bob at? Where's Bob at? No, I had a situation where Bob told me no multiple times. No, I will not. I will not. I will not. Then he went on.
He's claiming, basically to be apolitical. That's coming into question a lot, whether or not he also shares some of these views. And I think he does claim to lean conservative at some point in the other video. Maybe.
Your show, and he made it clear to me the kind of mindset he has. Very, very old school. I know some people like that in North Carolina. We live in the South. This is where we live. This is the kind of, here it's 50-50, blacks and whites. And there is alive and well racism here in the South where I live. Mm-hmm. And you kind of see this stuff all the time and go, it walks like a duck. It talks like a duck. But I care and love him. Am I going to defend him to the core where I'm going to say that this isn't racist? So I decided I was going to take a stand and say no. But I didn't go into any detail. I just cried and said, this is it. I can't have him on MythVision anymore. People are mad about that. So
I think maybe, and just judging from some of the things I've heard him say recently, that, Derek's been hanging out with Pine Creek Doug more since this, potentially, might have influenced some of his views and his behavior. I don't know.
People go, you need to give us justified reasons.
I mean, Pine Creek certainly was quick to jump on that, reposting the Price interview for posterity, Like, he seems to have some kind of hand in this. Who keeps teaching racism, Todd? No, he's not teaching racism. He just says racist shit, like, out of pocket, like, just at random.
Why?
I think he published on or something, like, he's one of these, like, Charles Murray type guys who's like, well, I'm just looking at statistics in the ghetto.
Well, I don't agree with that.
I decided I wanted to make the follow-up video.
Yeah, you can have whoever you want on your show or not. Like, to me, that's no thing. But I think the sort of the pushback against you was it really looked like virtue signaling, like, hey, everyone.
It definitely did, because people do not see what happened between the initial to the conclusion of my cry video. That's the point. After he came on your show, it wasn't, oh, man, these scholars who are pressuring me. I have to deplatform him or else these scholars. No, I doubled down when the scholars said this to me.
Oh, okay. So it's after his appearance on Pine Creek, which upcoming we're going to watch here, that Derek, maybe actually made this decision, potentially.
The video before the cry video, I doubled down.
After Price's appearance.
No, they had already made the threat. They're not coming on my channel anymore. There was only a couple. Over the years, a collective of like 30.
When you say double down, you mean double down on what exactly?
I double down defending Bob.
Oh, I see.
The video before the cry video, I was like, no, I'm not doing anything. Between then and the cry video, Derek Lambert, not any academics, not anyone on Twitter, not anyone else made this decision. And that decision was made by me because I then had to look at the girlfriend who I found out was cheating on me, that I wanted to defend and I loved so much, who had ideas that were extremely backwards, and she represented me and said, this is not a healthy, this is a toxic situation. And me and my wife sat down and talked about this. We all made this decision through this hard process. Then, once I said, this is goodbye, talked to him that night before I did the cry video, saying, listen, I want to be friends off air. I want to keep this relationship. I love you, Bob. Like, I don't want this to go anywhere. However, I am going to say goodbye on MythVision. He emails me the next morning, a gut-wrenching email that really dug deep. And he said, this is goodbye for good. He ended the relationship. And by the way, he has family members who text messaged me, called me, sensed this, and said, I'm so glad.
But you know why he did that, though, right? Why he sent you that email?
The cutoff?
Why he sent you that email is because he felt like you were throwing him under the bus, because he could have just walked away quietly, and that was
it. I didn't have to make the video.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so he felt like you were virtue signaling at his expense and just saying, hey, look, Robert Price is a racist. Look how good of a guy I am for not platforming him ever again.
Yeah, I could see why he would.
Yeah,
do that.
I think that's
also
where he's
see
coming
why
from.
Yeah, I mean, and there are going to be people who are going to believe what Bob has to say about this and only stick with what.
So could this actually have been weighing on Derek's conscience? You know, he's like, oh, maybe I did throw this guy under the bus. Maybe I was unconsciously virtue signaling to the people who I thought were going to cancel me. You know, so then he has like this extreme adverse reaction to it. And he's like, oh shit, now I gotta go and stand with the guy, even though I think he's a racist.
When I made that stand and saying these are racist things, I divorced myself publicly from his ideas, making it clear, like, no.
But then to go so far as to say, like, I know my friend, he's not a racist. He just says racist things from time to time. You know, I mean, we all do it, right?
Him telling me, like a son.
I mean, that's essentially the message that you get. Yeah, Tog says, oh, so like me. When the stats come out, people run.
Figure. I mean, he told me his entire library he was going to give to me when he passes away. Like,
yeah, you know, that was problematic in this debate, which is interesting. There's another figure, we get to the Steve McRae video, who comes into the fold, who was involved in that debate gone wrong on my channel, and a lot of it was having to do with the use of statistics and how you can right, you can skew facts if you use statistics in certain ways, right? And you're not, like, you don't know all the elements. Like, there's different types of statistical reading, right? There's a comparative and all this different stuff that you know, so you have to make, you know, certain comparisons to avoid you know, like correlation causation fallacies there.
Everything that he has academic wise, every ancient text he has in his library and everything, he's going to give it to me. Like, you're going to have all this. I was like a son figure. The fact that I did this to him feels like betrayal. The fact that he wasn't willing to compromise and help in some way make it clear that he isn't the things that are being thrown at him was a
comparative analysis.
When I begged
comparative analysis was the word I was looking for. Yeah.
him with my wife, she begged as well. Bob, we need you to at least apologize for these.
But did you guys really expect him to?
Yes.
You did.
Yes, I really believed that. That's why it hurt more than anything. I really believed that Bob would have gone out and said, listen, what was I thinking? This looks damn racist as hell. This is really horrible rhetoric. A woman just lost her son. No matter what the son may have or may not have done, it's not her fault. She can't control maybe how he ended up.
But did you hear it?
And,
you know, this is very interesting because I asked him about that. You remember when I had him on, and I asked him one of the first things I did is ask him to define thug. And he defined it as basic, you know, he defined it as anyone is lawless. And so regardless of color, he even said that. And so
there's only in his account historically, there's only black thugs.
Hang on. Is that fair?
He's not actually making memes. What I'm saying is he's going out of his way to publicly make it clear. Hey, black kid right here, boom, thug.
So in other words, you don't believe him when he says that you can be a thug and not black?
Oh, I believe he'll definitely be saying that now, especially on trial. I'm not saying he doesn't think that either. Here's my point. Sure, he might grant that. Sure.
But he did.
If you might act, and here's my thing, he might actually think that. What he's gone on and said, and only be talking about black people through these memes, these are problems that I notice. I live in an area that's 50-50. If a white guy always has some meme and something that's public about black people, but he's never making it about white people, then he makes this double standard about January 6th. These are heroes, patriots. These are good
I honestly think he is severely partisan. So if everybody at the January 6th thing was black, it's not about color. It's about partisanship.
No, I don't believe that. I really do not believe that. I'm dead serious. I don't believe that. I really think every meme that has
how many memes has he made?
There's already been at least 3 that he's published the Black Lives Matter thing, and I'm not even involved in this. This is the point I made about the whole white.
My awesome wife says verbatim and inner truth often don't match. Well, yeah, you can definitely misrepresent yourself, right? But yeah, that's the point. This guy was, saying that I think it was Trayvon Martin or something that they're referencing here was a thug and he deserved it or something like that. I don't remember which one. I think they said it was Trayvon. We'll hear it in the interview. But regardless, basically he's just making those kind of arguments and then saying that the BLM protesters should be shot in the street and among other things. He had said things like prior to that, or written things prior to that as well. But this was, well, again, this is like 2 years ago, so it's more like, yeah.
Are we having a double
So out of
standard?
3 memes,
Is
you're
Black
making this
Lives-
conclusion?
He's published. Have you looked up how many times he's been excommunicated from all of the different communities he's been a part of and lost?
Well, I'm not
jobs
denying
for
that, but
this?
I'm talking about
This is more than just that, though. He has spoken about this issue for over a decade. I didn't even know how much.
right.
this has
But
gone.
there's black people who are against the BLM movement, what they stand for. He
like maybe 1%, and that's
well, I don't know what the
probably-
percentage is, but I bet you it's more than one. And
Maybe.
the thing is, he would not say, "Well, okay, you're against the BLM movement like I am, but you're still black." He doesn't. I honestly don't think he thinks that way.
I don't know why he's only got memes that have.
But again-
black people in it, is what I'm saying.
So if he produced a
Do
meme,
you see what I'm trying to get at?
well,
I mean, you're wanting me to see your, but I'm trying to make a point. Like, if he had memes floating around with white kids that were thugs in his terms,
like
and
if
they
he
were
did
doing these
tomorrow,
things, this wouldn't have been a problem.
if he made 3 memes tomorrow about white thugs, would you change your mind?
I mean, obviously, why would he be doing it? Wouldn't you want to ask that question?
Or do you think he's just doing
Why
it
is
now
it all
just
of a-
to save his reputation?
What do you think, Doug? You believe everything he's saying? It sounds
let's say
like. I'm trying to
let's say he doesn't hear us.
And it's interesting, given Derek's recent turn, that he's using this argument because it's kind of exactly what he's going to end up doing.
Conversing about
That's
this,
so
and
weird.
just like over the course of the next 10 years, he produces 3
Okay.
memes about thugs, and they happen to be white.
But he's going to virtue signal the other way. So was he virtue signaling then, or is he virtue signaling now?
Right.
Would you change your mind that okay, maybe he isn't racist?
Maybe.
Okay.
I would say this hit home. He's wrote people that I know personally who've sent me images of his messages, and he's made the point like I really screwed up this time. Like this has really hit home on a whole different level. I bet.
And he didn't even even in the part where he's excuses, so well, he's not really a racist or whatever, the way he put it, but he's also like, it wouldn't matter if he was, like, even if he was a racist, we could still get some value out of his contribution to biblical scholarship or some shit. That's his alternative argument. He's like, even if he was a Nazi, we could still. I think somebody says that at some point too. Oh well, we may not like Hitler, but if it wasn't for Hitler, we wouldn't have rocket propulsion technology or something. Which I think is complete bullshit. Obviously, we still would have, like that. But that's legitimately the way some people think, which is really fucking weird. Sandy returns. Oh, okay. Private message in the public.
To simply, not change your views, Bob. Not change your views, Bob. The whole crowd out there is looking at this saying, except for maybe 5%, is saying this is racist. Now, maybe far right conservatives
Saying what is racist?
Okay. The memes that he put out there.
Okay, I'll be honest with you, Eric.
political.
None of the memes that, like the first half of our conversation, and I brought up all those things,
Mm-hmm.
and when I asked him to explain it, I found none of it racist.
Yeah, I think that
I think he's
what he explained was very apologetic. I don't believe the apologetics that come from Christians.
okay. Now that's a
And
different story. So basically, what I'm hearing you say is,
I'm not dividing Trump though. You're taking the apologetics to Trump. I feel like much of what he said before you even got to Trump was apologetics.
okay, but then what you're
He knew this was an issue, by the way, before he got on your show. So maybe he was ready for it.
Well, I mean, you're just Doug, a fucking Trump supporter. So anyway, I can't think of there was like one of those things. I can't even think what those things are called now. Shit.
Maybe he was trying. I don't know.
But let's say he was telling the truth in the first half of that conversation, like the pre-Trump Trump conversation, the BLM and the thug thing. Let's say he was telling the truth, just the words out of his mouth. Would you call him a racist based on that?
I honestly wouldn't know if I would. I don't think I would call him a racist personally. I think that there's definitely some prejudices there. So I don't.
I mean, you just said that the things he was saying were objectively racist, but the person saying the racist thing is not racist. I mean, there's an argument for that, right? They don't fully understand the implications of what they're saying, maybe, or that they're their heart's in the right place, but they're misguided in certain areas or something, like have bad information.
I don't know if you can be prejudiced in some sense and still not be a racist, but if you go and look at a YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly, he interviews a Ku Klux Klan member. They asked the Ku Klux Klan member, the guy who's doing the interviews, "Are you a racist?" You know what he had to say, Doug?
What?
Guess.
He's asked whether or not he's a racist.
Yeah, the guy asked the Ku Klux Klan member wearing a purple top hat. He's wearing a Ku Klux Klan like wizard hat if he's a racist. Do you want to know what this Ku Klux Klan member said?
What?
No, I'm not a racist. You're trying to say I'm a racist bigot. No, I'm proud to be white, is what he said. Now, do you think Ku Klux Klan members are racist, Doug, or do you think they're not racist?
Well, I would say the bet would be they're racist by definition.
I would too. I would too. But even if they say themselves they're not, I don't know. I can't know that if Bob is racist or not. All I can know is that everything he has, some social political thing he wants to jab.
Well, that's why we don't necessarily judge people's, we don't give people that much credit for judging their own prejudices, right? Like, and that's why it's more and more normalized, especially in circles like this, in the woke left, right? Where like you're pulling people's covers. Like if they say some racist shit, you tell them it's racist, and you don't just like, oh, that's just Bob, doing what Bob does, and just ignore him, because that's what they do in like polite society or whatever, I guess.
It's always people of color. It's always something in that category, and that's why I went, okay, hold on, let me look into this a little further.
No, that's not true. Because he said to me on that interview that through the rioting in Washington or wherever, like the BLM riots, there was a lot of white people there. He said shoot them dead too. He's saying shoot white people dead too.
He said shoot white people.
Well, he basically said shoot all the rioters, and he knows that
protesters. Yeah, and Doug is using the term rioters now. I think No, it's all right. No shade.
all
Not
the
throwing any
rioters were
shade.
white. To him, it was the writing.
That's very why. Look, the memes you brought up. Let's take this one step at a time because I think this is very important. The memes you brought up. If you went and dug up a bunch of memes that had white people, white kids that were being killed and acting in ways he would call thug, all right, then that would change my mind. But the problem is, when I investigated this, there are no other white people memes that he's making.
Well, again, you're using a sample size of 3.
I found more on comments about people with color, not just memes, right? These memes, there's only 3 memes, but he's published on these issues, these social issues in the past. So then I looked into his H.P. Lovecraft stuff.
Yeah.
He got excommunicated from the H.P. Lovecraft community, and H.P. Lovecraft was a racist. Like he flat out would talk degradingly toward blacks. And Bob Price quotes some of them.
Nietzsche was also a racist. Somebody was telling me that he wasn't, and blaming his sister and stuff, but he did hold some racist ideologies. It's clear in his writing. His view may have fluctuated at certain points or whatever, but he at some point held some racist ideologies for certain.
More racist areas in H.P. Lovecraft's works to make his points in a lot of his H.P. Lovecraft.
But I understand, and the point here too is like that Lovecraft was a writer of fiction, right? And that's whatever. So his work is good for what it is. In a modern day, so in the context they're talking about, like this guy's like writing fan fiction and insists on putting racism in there to make it like more, Lovecraftian, I guess, where that's not even necessary. You could just write a story in the style of, because Lovecraft like went off the handles, right? Like he wasn't putting that shit in his books, and then all of a sudden like had like this conniption and started, inserting it in the books, just like because he was, losing his fucking mind. The dude went nuts.
Discussions, and he got excommunicated from there.
Yeah.
Why? Doing the same kind of stuff that he keeps doing, and you have to ask yourself, why is his own daughter messaging Derek after all of this? His own daughter, his flesh and blood, contacts me after all this and says, "I have had this problem with my mother and father for years, and I'm glad you took a stand." His own flesh and blood contacted me and told me, "Derek, I hate."
And that should really tell you everything.
This happened to you, and my father wasn't willing to work this out. She doesn't even live with them, and I don't know the full details. I wonder why. I don't know. So I'm just like, there's a lot that people on the internet who judge behind their little screens aren't factoring in, but there's a lot more to this. This would be different if he was a random academic once in a blue I interviewed.
Yeah, that's an interpersonal connection. That's a more difficult thing to deal with. And all the more reason that a lot of this stuff probably shouldn't have been as public as it was. Probably right about that. Like making the response video probably was not appropriate. But obviously discovering this about the person, he seems like he was truly shocked. At least that's what he's trying to convey. Now I don't know. You might question his sincerity. especially in this interview, in this context, like, does he know what Pine Creek's about, right? Because Pine Creek actually sympathizes with a lot of Price's views, right? Like he's playing like he's on Derek's, like he's neutral here or whatever. But in reality, if you listen to Pine Creek for any length of time, he actually espouses a lot of the same, racist, bigoted propaganda.
It's so close to home, and he has a lot of baggage when it comes to controversy on these topics. I mean, you can disagree with me. You could think, well, on those issues, I think this, or I don't think he's what you're saying.
He does. He disagrees with you. I don't know if they'll engage
I
in
didn't
that.
want to think this. Right now, it's hard for me to believe he's not prejudiced. One person put in the comments under your video, I think it was, Bob Price isn't a racist, but his views are racist. And I thought to myself, that sounds like that Ku Klux Klan member who says he's not a racist.
Do you think it's possible to be a thug? What's a thug?
Well, if you take it into modern context, and Bob knows language better than you and me combined, anyone who knows Tupac Shakur, thug life, modern context, you would say people who are obviously in like the rap community would use this term, and typically
can you be a thug and not black?
Typically, yeah, you can.
Okay, so if that's the way Price meant it, he's not making a racist comment, is he?
Are you being apologetic for him?
Yes,
right now,
I'm defending him. Yeah,
right.
I'm asking questions to help change your mind on this, because if it is true.
Well, he's using it as a defense to justify the killing of a person by labeling them in such a way.
That's what he meant by the word thug.
So that's where you're differentiating. Like, why would you use the term thug as a label, which makes a person, to devalue their life?
Then he would not be a racist.
That's what he meant. I have a hard time believing Bob lacks the last 30 years of culture in understanding how the
I didn't know that.
Today,
I didn't know that until that interview where someone told me, "Oh, thug is a."
I know how it's been used colloquially in
right,
modern
but
context.
basically, if you define thug as someone who's lawless, makes criminal acts for a long time, then whether you're black or white, you can be a thug.
Right.
Right.
And that's why when I did my follow-up video, I said, I guess I'm a thug, and there is no second chance for me. Bob is.
I know, but on that point, do you agree? So
I'm willing to concede.
Yeah.
I'm willing. But if you're asking me if that's what Bob actually thinks, that's where I think it's more apologetics to defend him and agree with his.
Right, but now you're judging him on his internal being rather than what he's actually the words he's saying, right? You're trying to get into his soul.
I'm not trying to get into his soul. I'm trying to point out the way the whole thing looked.
Aren't these two atheists? What are we talking about souls for?
As someone who knows Bob.
Well, yeah, I know, but the way it looks, like
countless hours.
you say anything remotely bad against African Americans, people are going to call you racist. When some of it might be legitimate.
If that's all you go publicly to criticize is African Americans, damn right.
But he doesn't. Like, he came out and said,
show me the white critical post. This is my point.
I know, but your sample size is 3.
And there's no other examples of anyone else.
Yeah, and Doug, you have 0 other examples. Exactly. Your sample size is none.
Not just 3. Those 3 memes. He has published extensively on this. He can't even keep silent on it in fictional books, Swords and Shields or whatever the book was. He was part of a fictional committee. They had to cancel him. They had to literally get him off of it. He can't even write a fictional book without getting into some social political issue in the opening.
But a lot of people are very sensitive about these things. People are going to cancel me, cancel you. People will do what they do. But that doesn't mean that what Bob Price said, at least in the first half of my video, that he was blatantly lying.
Maybe not.
And if he wasn't lying, then I would say he's not a racist. He's basically very partisan. He's basically, I don't care if you're black. If you do this, you're a thug. And that's not a racist comment. It says, you are a bad African American. Bad. You are a thug.
All you talk about,
right?
African Americans being bad.
No, hang on. But this is to someone listening, they'd say, well, that's racist because you said African American. But you can have an African American who's a thug.
Yes,
and you can have a white person
It's the context in which you're talking about that person, right? The conversation, and let's say call it a thug. It's that he said that it didn't matter if he was killed by a cop because he was a thug, regardless of whether or not, maybe he's going to claim he's doing thuggish shit, but that's regardless of the point. It's just saying that, in his eyes, if a thug gets killed by a cop, then it's irrelevant, right? That's essentially what he's saying.
Thug.
Look, I don't think what Black Lives Matter did is right in terms of their rioting.
Yeah.
I am against
so
that.
You agree with Price?
Protesting that they did. I agree with the fact. No, I don't. Price he does a double standard here. Price says January 6th, good guys, and I guarantee you if they were all black, he wouldn't. I'm telling you, I'm convinced that Bob Price
Really?
definitely sees these good old American white boys with rebel flags / crosses on their flags.
This is where I
American
think you're
flags.
wrong.
I totally
bet you we could
disagree.
get Price
Yeah.
on here right now and ask him if they were.
Of course he would.
So again, you're left with accusing him of being saying one thing and really believing another.
I honestly cannot imagine him from publishing what he's published. You think he would actually come on and actually say this?
Yeah, I think he would. I bet you money he would.
What I'm saying, do you think he would say what I'm actually saying? No, he would say, no, it wouldn't matter to me a bit.
Right.
But we can't name a single example where there's nothing but blacks that he's standing behind the whole thing going, yeah.
No, that's not true. He was against the BLM riots, and he knows very well that not everybody there was black.
What about the black guys who were threatened to be killed by Donald Trump? Donald Trump said execute.
But see, once again, it's incidental because they are associated, right? They are upholding, right, like this concept, that Black Lives Matter. So therefore, they're just like, once again, they're incidentals. So that's his view, essentially.
Yeah, and Donald Trump was wrong.
Right. And Bob Price would have stood with whatever Donald Trump is saying in this particular thing. My point is, I do think there's prejudice there. I do think that. Not only do I, his own daughter does. And you think his own flesh and blood knows this.
I would assume that his daughter might have some woke ideas as well, and that's why she's saying these things.
Let me put it this way, because I don't get very political ever. What if the woke idea on this is actually a better idea than the idea of let's hide this thing, this prejudice concept behind these whole he said
that's sad, right? Because now we're leaving the woke left, but 2 years ago, like, maybe this wokeness ain't such a bad thing.
I believe exactly what he said here. When every time he publishes, he's only publishing.
And he's flippy flopping a bit. I mean, so apparently, Derek maybe doesn't have a consistent, like a foundation for his. He doesn't have the proper epistemology going on here. He's actually, I heard somebody saying that he didn't know what the word epistemology meant when invited onto a popular epistemology based platform or something.
Colored people. He's not talking about white people. Why isn't that the case? Why is he excommunicated from every place he goes?
Because we live in a culture. Because we live in a highly sensitive culture right now of a bunch of people who just say one.
If he was a racist, do you think it would have been wrong to? If he actually was a racist, he says, I think blacks just inherently do worse. They're far less. They're more primitive. They're not quite where they should be. If that were things he said, would you think he should be canceled, or should we say, hey, hold on, freedom of speech? No. You think he should be kept on the platform?
Yes.
If he's saying this, you and me do not see eye to eye on that. That's the difference.
This is interesting. Why do we disagree? Let's ponder that.
Because my goal with Myth.
So, and at this point, he is actually endorsing somebody being canceled by whatever definition, whatever he's calling being canceled, right? Which, arguably, once again, if people just choose not to come to your platform, are you being canceled, right? If they choose to disengage with your content, doing it once again, there's a line between that and doing things to actively sabotage somebody's activities and just choosing to not be engaged with that thing.
Is to help people see that we're all humans, that we're all on even playing field here, that we should see each other as equals. We're not equals. This is where I know you have a different.
Do you honestly think all humans are equal?
I don't think, if you look around, I don't think everyone acts equally. Everything is the same, like we all do the same things that we should. I'm looking for a universal world that I'm trying to aim at, showing people who don't have the same voices, who may not have the same opportunities, who may be minorities, or have already committed crimes such as myself, and they do deserve a second chance because there is a chance.
Right, but I'm asking a question about, do you believe that we're all equal? And I guess in what sense?
Yeah, that'd be the question I'd follow up and ask is, what do you mean by
equal? Are we all equal in ability?
No.
No. Are we all equal in how we were raised?
But let me ask you this. Let's pause right there. Equal in ability.
Yeah.
Not everyone's born with legs that work. Not everyone's born with sight. Yep. Should we take care of our blind?
Yes.
Should we take care of our crippled? Should we treat them the same way we treat other human beings, or should they be treated less than because they...
So I think he's slipping down a slippery slope here. Yeah, slippery slope. That's how you use that one. Because now he's entertaining that we should treat somebody being a minority the same as somebody with a disability, with people with disabilities being a category of minority, right? And then you'd have I think where are we going with this, right? Because now you could take on that again, that eugenics argument where you'd say, okay, let's say hypothetically that some race of people is inferior. Isn't it our obligation to hold on? What's the argument here?
We're not
Well,
born
some would
with the same
argue they
advantages.
should be treated better than, not less than.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and if they are legitimately, if they were born without legs, we should help them get wheelchairs, get ramps, all that.
I
Yeah.
agree. I agree.
And some people are
We're on the same
born
page.
with an IQ of 75. Some people are born with an IQ of 150. We're not equal.
So here's the deal. We're not equal on that. My ideal is that we try to
Do you inherit your IQ at birth? Is that factually accurate? I'm not sure about that. I would have to look into that.
treat people.
I don't take Pine Creek at his word there.
No, that's bad too.
I don't think so. I think we need to try.
I mean, I believe that he may believe it, but I don't necessarily believe that it's true.
at least to no. You know how many people are minorities?
No.
who
You
aren't
might
privileged, or
misunderstand
they-
me. When I say, like what I just said, if someone needs more help, you don't treat them as equally as someone who doesn't need help.
You're saying better. Than
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I think I'm doing right now. In this particular situation, that's how I feel about this. I feel that what Bob's saying isn't okay. The way that he has come across and this whole thing, all he can't change it, man. I'm repeating myself here, and I feel like it's only hitting a wall with you in particular, but 90% of the community and the atheist community do see this and recognize this. You might call them woke, but I actually feel inherently.
It's crazy that he's actually completely like taken a whole 180 on this entire stance, and I wonder what transpired in between. It's crazy. My awesome life says yes, we are all equal. Sandy says I'm only half joking, but it's past my horizontal time. Well, good night, Sandy. Good seeing you as always. Yeah, this is some whole ass drama that I have been indulging in. But I only became aware of Myth Vision probably a couple of years ago. Like maybe shortly before this happened. I don't know. It's hard to keep track, but I haven't watched very much of their content. Like I watched a few episodes or something. Like I don't follow closely. I get all the notifications on like Facebook. I'm in his group and stuff. I haven't really engaged with him much. And actually, I was watching his testimonial on getting clean from drugs and stuff like that, or you call it testimonial or whatever the F it was. Like his whole life story, which he kind of reiterates in this most recent video, where he basically just blows all of the things he's saying up in this video. He's like, I'm actually going to take completely the contradiction position to what I did in this one. But anyway, so I was like, oh, he kind of seemed like a down-to-earth dude or whatever. But there were kind of some red flags that I've seen that other people have now pointed out who've been probably paying more attention as far as his claiming to be politically neutral and now apparently maybe actually leaning conservative. And if that's the case, that's either a kind of a newly found ideology that he's managed to wrestle into his worldview or whatever, or he was always doing that, and this is all the act. This is all performative right here. Oh no, I missed some comments here. He cut my comment too. We're not all created equal though, money aside. Yeah. I don't care too much for money though.
Okay, so this is.
Sorry, it looks like the Prism comments might not be working. Did he just cut the
What
video?
I think I'm doing right now. One's born with sight.
Yep.
Should we take care of our blind?
Yes.
Should we take care of our
Yes.
crippled? Should we treat them the same way we treat other human beings, or should they be treated less than because they were not?
Well,
born
some would
with the same
argue they
advantages?
should be treated better than, not less than.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and if they are legitimately, if they were born without legs, we should help them get wheelchairs, get ramps, all that.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And some people are
We're on the same
born
page.
with an IQ of 75. Some people are born with an IQ of 150. We're not equal.
So here's the deal. We're not equal on that. My ideal is that we try to treat people equal.
No, that's bad too.
I don't think so. I think we need to try at least to. No, you know how many people are minorities?
No.
who
You
aren't
might
privileged, or
misunderstand
they-
me. When I say, like what I just said, if someone needs more help, you don't treat them as equally as someone who doesn't need help.
You're saying better. Than
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I think I'm doing right now. In this particular situation, that's how I feel about this. I feel that what Bob's saying isn't okay. the way that he has come across and this whole thing, all he can't change it, man. I'm repeating myself here, and I feel like it's only hitting a wall with you in particular, but 90% of the community in the atheist community do see this and recognize this. You might call them woke, but I actually feel inherently, from my own experience in this life that I've lived, that is the right stand I'm taking because
But
the things he said.
the thing is, like in my view, what it's all about is just feelings. It's
like absolutely opposite stance today. Mind-boggling. GeoSam says better is relative. Yes. And I don't think better was the correct choice of words there. Like if somebody is in need of like extra care, you're not treating them better than somebody else. You're just, you're responding to that circumstance, right? Whatever that person's need that they can't fulfill on their own, somebody else steps in, does the right thing, helps them out or whatever. Altruism and shit.
like you're hurting my feelings. Bob Price is hurting people's feelings, and this is where we might have a fundamental disagreement. Where, if Bob Price makes you cry, then go ahead and cry, but get over it. Mm-hmm. Now, if Bob Price is inciting violence, and there's a high probability that will come to fruition, that's a different.
Shooting protesters?
Yes, I push back hard. That was probably
so. Moving on beyond your and I disagreement, we're not going to get anywhere in this particular matter when it comes to the black issue. Okay, but as far as we are 100% on the same page in the way that he wants to treat protesters who go violent. You would agree with me that obviously ridiculous.
Yeah, okay, but I'll put a caveat even on that.
I'll add a caveat too. If they're actually endangering or killing or actually about to potentially harm someone, there's a life-threatening situation, then I get it.
And I actually think, I don't know if you saw it, but Price was on Nathan's channel and he kind of backtracked and went there. Now, I'm going from memory. So he was saying, well, if they're just stealing a TV, maybe not kill them. But if they're actually holding a gun while they do it and they point it at you while you say stop, then you can kill them. So it's kind of muddy.
He's tiptoeing backwards, you think?
Well, on Nathan's channel, I got that impression a little bit. But
So then my question is, if he's willing to backtrack there, right? If let's just say he went full on, didn't give a crap on your episode. He just said it like he really feels.
Yeah.
But then he backtracks.
That's why I don't think he's lying in the first part when he said he wasn't racist. Because he was just unloading.
I have a hard time knowing if this apologetics or not. And that's coming from someone who wished it wasn't true, right? And he may not be. Some of the views he holds, though, look it. And I think they look racist.
But here's the fundamental difference between us. Who cares if it looks racist?
I do.
Okay, but why?
Because
why do you care if it looks racist, man? Why do you care what people think about you? Why do you care if you're spewing hateful nonsense that's not helpful to anybody? Why does that matter? You're just trying to fit in, man, by trying to not be perceived as racist by others. And you shouldn't really care what people think about you, right? This is how you mind fuck somebody, right? It's not about them. How do you feel internally? Do you feel like you're racist? Go ahead. Say the N-word. See how you feel. Sam said people who are not in need is the difference. Better is a comparative. Yes. Better is a comparative. Better than what? It's evaluative, right? Like, so you have to have something, exactly. Better, worse, good, bad, right, wrong. Yeah, it's a value judgment.
I don't want any of his views and what he's saying to impact people's view of what I think and how I'm trying to push
but why do you care about what people think about you?
Well, I mean, anyone cares. Typically, some people care. You care about what your wife thinks about you, I suspect. You may have a tighter bubble in which you care. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not interested in having someone that has these views become my views. They're not my views.
Right, but you can make that clear just by saying Robert's Price views don't reflect mine.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted a simple apology as well for me. Bob, I'm not asking you to change your views. I'm not even asking you to go on record and say, okay, I shouldn't have done this. No, but at least show empathy. Did you feel he had
empathy? It's about
feelings
again, right? It's just like
absolutely. You live in a world with a community of people that you're trying to teach and talk to, and you're communicating this way where you're talking about shoot protesters.
But the thing is, you're asking Robert Price to apologize for making someone feel bad that is ultimately in their own control of whether they feel bad or not. Like Robert Price, let's say
No, we're asking him to apologize for peddling in racist propaganda and delegitimizing minority groups. Yeah.
Say anything offensive to me, odds are I'm not going to be offended. Now, what's the difference between me and someone who's offended who might watch your channel not like Price?
It's not just
they haven't learned how to
being...
deal with their emotions and feelings.
He educates on my channel. He's teaching people ideas, and I begin to wonder how much of his ideas that he teaches, biblically and otherwise, are being impacted by these other.
Well, yeah, that's a whole new topic, right? That's
in the vein of there's a lot of motivating factors behind why I'm saying these things to you that aren't even getting touched. I mean, we're just hitting like on the surface top stuff that we're dealing with.
And now he's like, no, we just talk about the Bible. He doesn't teach any other ideas on there, I'm sure.
But here, there's a lot. My intention with Myth Vision,
I went back, I double checked,
is to get people to see through religion, but also to have humanity on it. Try to view each other equally. Tribalism runs through all of these religions, and tribalism runs through politics as well. I'm not a fan of any of it, to be honest with you. I'm not a fan of the tribalism that comes from either side. But when you do factor in everything that's come up and then talk about civil war, hoping that January 6th caused civil war so that Republicans have their own states and Democrats have their own states, and you wished blood was poured out like the first Civil War, what the hell?
You know what? I said on a different live stream that I disagreed with him, but I think that you can imagine scenarios where you and I both would start to shift towards Bob's position on shooting rioters dead. And that is, can you imagine a case where every city, every day, there's rioting and violence?
Yes. I told that to my wife last night, actually. I talk to my wife about this stuff all the time. I don't publicly like to discuss this often. I'm only doing this for you, Doug, because I do like you. I love you, actually. I've been watching you.
Like you and I agree, right? You know what? We'd say,
oh boy. There you are. There you have it. Can they get the camera so that they're facing each other like this? Apparently Derek likes it like that.
If chaos hit the fan,
we would start shooting people.
I own weapons. I mean, I own weapons. You think you're coming to my house? You think no. So I have a different boundary at which I'll draw that it's time to actually take life before mine's taken.
So really, the difference between you and Bob on that shooting writers is in degree. It's not as...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What Bob's saying is you don't allow any of it. Whereas you're saying if it becomes huge, then we can start allowing this.
Bob's coming from a post-World War II, it seems, situation where all hell just broke loose. The end of the world is nigh, and if anyone gets out of line, correct them. I'm not. And I feel like when I get older, I hope that I'll listen to the new generation.
These dudes still think, we're like in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. They haven't moved on since then. You realize that? That's like a lot of these people, these zealous. That was all since 9/11. They're like that one time. Remember when they flew those planes over here? They crashed them into stuff. Yeah, man. Never again. Never again. And they're still fucking on about it.
Time goes by, and I'm not stuck in my old ways either. But let me tell you, he's stuck in his old ways, and I just wish he was more compromising. He wasn't willing to do that even for me. And all I needed...
Daryl Davis. You got to watch Daryl Davis talk to KKK members. Did you see that clip I did?
I have. I loved watching those videos. I really do. And breaking that communication, see, I wasn't wanting everybody to stop talking to Bob. That's why I never had a problem with you, Nathan, anybody who talks to him. I hope people still talk to Bob. For me, I'm not interested anymore.
Okay, and that's fair enough. And I got to go pick up my son from school.
I hope people still talk to Bob, but I'm not interested anymore.
Cool, so I got to end this.
But he was hurt because Bob ended the friendship. It's just, he's holding some contradictory shit inside already. He's conflicted. He's conflicted.
But yeah, fair enough. You got to do what you got to do for the best of your family and your channel. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot, man. It sucks. Wish he didn't cut me off, on the email, but it all worked out the way it did. All things work together for good to those who love.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Christian roots. Okay, take care, Derek. All the best to you.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Have a good one, man. Bye.
Oh, come on. Okay, so he has since fucking retitled this video or whatever. It's still up. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I'm going to watch just a little bit of it, just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with now. He's done some videos since then. There it is.
Just doing normal Chrissy things and in people's careers,
This is the person who supposedly is canceling them. Okay, but I'm not worried about all that. It's good. Let's get into the
years against John.
It's your car? Oh, okay. They feel like they're sociopaths do.
Preferred. I knew I wasn't at home with this church, so I left. A revelation. I had a revelation about this entire Bob Price situation. Recently, I did a stream with a very good friend I know, John. All that to say, are they overreacting and making this much bigger than it should be? If so, then why is their tactic to attack and accuse rather than build up and help change? Let's get right to what happened recently that really makes me have a revelation. I had a revelation about this entire Bob Price
He had a revelation about the
situation. Recently, I did a stream with a very good friend I know, John F. White, who has a channel called Kreckenford on YouTube. We discussed ancient myths. I posted the video on my Facebook group, and Chrissy Hansen, the same person who was behind Bob, right, commented that he, John F. White, was associated with white supremacists. I'm not sure if they said he was one or just associated with. Huge accusation. Here is Chrissy again, accusing, labeling, destroying others' reputations. She was one of the masterminds behind the initial Bob Price situation. She has done tons of damage to many people's reputations, like Dave Allen, where you can hear it directly from their own mouth that they like to destroy people.
Just doing normal Chrissy things, ending people.
That's all irrelevant. Like at the time, like we just saw you on Pine Creek's channel saying you saw the evidence and you assessed it to be racist in nature, right? Like you saw it with your own eyes. And now because this is the person apparently who told you about the racist shit he said, they're somehow responsible.
Careers, you know.
Ending people's careers, you know.
Literally from her own mouth, she loves doing this. She's toxic. Really, really stay away, honestly. She has done this with Richard Carrier and has played a major role in academics online, not passing Dr. Richard Carrier's articles and trying to run around destroying him for past allegations where he was never charged with anything. Accusations. If there's truth to them, there was no charge, but they love to do this. And in fact, I think some of the reasons he's not getting peer-reviewed material through is because there is a real thing going on where Chrissy's in the ear of these academics and they're spreading rumors and everyone's talking shit behind the scenes. I'm an honest...
Full-on conspiracy theory. Full-blown. Oh no. Chrissy, a YouTuber, is spreading info through the YouTube back channels to these academics and they're getting canceled in the academic world. Amazing stuff.
I believe this isn't a conspiracy because I've spoken to scholars who I'm not going to name names who have actually said this. And I'm telling you, it's sick.
I've spoken to scholars. I'm not going to name names, but they've actually said that. I'm telling you, man. It's a conspiracy, bro.
How deep this shit goes. I know so much dirt that this person...
He claims to have receipts here. And somebody else aptly said, bro, if you have receipts, just bring them to the table. Don't sit here and just espouse fucking bullshit. Just tell us, what is it? You know, what are you talking about?
Does behind the scenes, like hours of audios, every private message that they say, like this is so much. Chrissy is honestly behind so many issues online. And then Chrissy makes this accusation about my friend John F. White. And I know John. And
So she vets people who she sees in online spaces and tries to find out whether or not they've said problematic shit and hold them accountable for it. Amazing.
Davis believes Chrissy. So I called John with these accusations because I know the guy and have befriended him. Once he tells me that she is lying and has been lying about this for several years, spreading this misinformation on WhatsApp, Twitter, Reddit, and other platforms, John sends me a 12-minute audio on WhatsApp that nails the coffin shut. But Kip, he doesn't know John. He's still listening to Chrissy. Chrissy's still in his ear, probably right now, even to this day. Chrissy doubled down and sends a picture with a logo on it that one of these members is wearing an Odinic rights badge, one of them, in a photo. The claim from Kip and Chrissy was that supposedly this guy John is in the picture. But he's not. That was all bullshit. And John made a video on YouTube explaining this on his channel. Chrissy is trouble, so I had to block this person. They were caught lying red-handed, and poor Kip is caught up thinking there was some truth to this accusation. She's been doing this for years. It dawned on me that Chrissy always did this, and she did this with my friend Bob. It was like I snapped out of a dream all at once. I then realized that these people are deeply troubled and like to destroy others.
But she didn't do, like, you're saying you didn't find the guy in the photo, but you actually saw the evidence that Bob published this shit and he whatever tweeted or shared this shit on social media. Like, you saw the evidence for yourself and judged it to be racist, right? Again, now you're saying that it's the same situation. It's not the same situation at all. It's not even similar. Like, if she had the identity of a person wrong in a photo, that's one thing. But you don't have the identity of the person wrong in the case of Bob Price. He still holds in defense those same views. Like, what are you talking about?
TikTok made me try this lazy girl litter box hack. I
Yeah.
stopped trying
And
to hide
I'm
litter box
not
smells.
watching an
I
ad.
stopped scooping.
You get the gist of the conspiracy theory that's going on there. So it's the woke atheist left cult that's done it to him. We're trying to destroy him. Apparently,
That's
somebody's
great.
trying to destroy him.
Do you know why you're here?
Because of the accusations that I'm a
Yeah,
racist.
exactly. So,
Are they also saying I'm a Martian?
no, I have not seen any of those complaints that you're a Martian.
Because they might as well.
My guess is I can predict your
I'm not a racist. Ain't a racist bone in my
answers
body.
to most of my questions, but I hope to be surprised.
Never heard that one before. Never ever in my life.
I guess we should start with this. How do you've been accused of being a racist by some? How do you define racism?
A prejudicial antipathy toward people of a particular racial and or ethnic group just because they belong to it, and you feel there's something wrong with that group, which is utterly stupid. So I have no patience for racism. I think I've written against it. I think it's ludicrous but dangerous, and so that's what I think it means.
What would you say is the reason why racism is bad or wrong?
Well, because though people are different, luckily, they're all human beings and deserve the respect regardless. Now, individuals may forfeit that respect, but that's not because of any genetic thing or pigment, God forbid, or anything like that. But I mean, I don't really respect a career criminal, right? But that's somebody once.
So right off the bat, yeah, doesn't sound racist, does he? Does he?
Said, it's not bigotry to be to dislike jerks because nobody is born a jerk. They have to work at it, and so that's not prejudice. You're drawing a distinction because of behavior and choices an individual has made, and that's, to me, that's not prejudice even.
Do you think
Ironic choice of words. Nobody is born a jerk. They have to work at it.
one could be a good racist?
Do you think one could be a good racist? He asked.
Well, if they just had superficial opinions, like, as you may know, I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft and write a whole lot about him, and he held racist opinions that I wish he hadn't had, but I'm part of a Lovecraft hero cult, a personality cult. I just do not see that means I should not enjoy fascinating and thought-provoking fiction. Heidegger was a member of the Nazi Party, but as far as I can tell, that does not influence his existential ontology and all of that. I find it very helpful, and I just don't think you can make one thing disqualify an unrelated thing. But with Lovecraft, though, I started with him. This guy we have numerous memoirs of this man from people that knew him, and they all attest to him, and they're not really arguing the racism thing. They're just saying, well, I knew this guy. This is what he was like. And they go on to describe an almost Christ-like, bodhisattva-like concern for others and a willingness to go the second mile to accept them despite their foibles.
That's not entirely accurate. There are varying accounts of Lovecraft's character, but that's neither here nor there. And what he said is kind of interesting. He was like, okay, because you hold problematic views in one area doesn't disqualify your genius or expertise in another area, which may have some merit, right? But in today's world, it's not like the past, right? There are far more academics today than there were in the past, who are well qualified, in a field that maybe you could get the same or even better information from a person who's not a bigot, and so therefore that bigot becomes less and less relevant, right? Their expertise are less impressive in that scenario. I don't know. Brojo's 420 Cafe. Hi, welcome. Emotional damage. Yeah, there's some emotional damage going on here, I'd say.
Unfortunately, he also held, I think, sort of armchair opinions about certain cultures and races, but it seems simply to have been a nutty opinion with him. That would be a case of a guy who was good despite this undesirable and irrational opinion he held.
And I enjoy reading Lovecraft, but I cringe anytime I get to one of those racist. Sometimes I'll just skip the stories, like if they're too racist. Some of it's just unnecessary. You're just like, what did he say? Why would, anyway, we're not going to go there. I still enjoy some Lovecraft, but I recognize the problems there. It's just not like that important to me. Like, yep, he was fucked up.
That wouldn't bother me a whole lot. It's surprising to do that, but
so what you're saying is you can be racist and still be great or good person in other areas of your life.
Yeah, I've known relatives like that they occasionally will make, older ones, will make a racist remark, and I kind of flinch at them. It's not my place.
You literally are that guy, but you flinch at them? Like, Robert Price is the guy. And then he's like, but I flinch at, I imagine what his relatives are saying. If he's flinching at them, I mean, I guess, maybe it's progress. It's relative, right? Yeah, it's a judgment call. All right, thanks, Brojo. Have fun. I'll try. I've been deeply engrossed in this back and forth, and once these once these videos popped, I was like, So a lot of people have been, taken into the whole Myth Vision video that we were just watching, and so like I said, Nitty did a great stream on that, and Jefferson Spatchcock as well. I highly recommend those ones, and other people. I mean, the Kentucky Atheist covered it, Brantley covered it. So, and there's been more development since then. With most people know he called into the line with Matt Dillahunty, not Derek, the other guy, Gnostic informant. So they're teamed up against the woke left now, and Steve McRae's got their back.
Grew up in a different culture, and I can't really be too surprised they absorbed some of it. I'm just glad when they do transcend it. But I don't just damn people because of either opinions I don't agree with or prejudices I find repulsive.
Okay. Yesterday, someone on Twitter suggested I go through a whole bunch of stuff, and other people send me stuff, and it's like I'm like inundated with stuff of things you said in the past, and I want to give you an opportunity to explain what you mean, the context, and so forth. And I don't know exactly where to start, but maybe just in general, why do you think some people accuse you of being a racist?
Well, I think it's a Saul Alinsky move that he said you need to, I don't know if he put it in these terms, but he basically says you need to co-opt language to trap and marginalize and dismiss your ideological opponents. And so we now hear people say that, well, for instance, the homophobia charge. That's a great example. Like, I don't have any problem morally with homosexuality. That's not an issue for me. But I do stick up for people who have reasoned arguments against the morality of it, which I have sought to rebut in discussions. Well, they're not convinced. I don't think in there, like a relative of mine is a retired nurse, and she's a very sharp.
I agree. So no, I'm trying to paraphrase him here, not me. But if he's saying I agree that people are entitled to have the opinion that homosexuality is wrong, even if I don't hold that belief. Okay, cool. Like, cool. Yeah, people are entitled to their opinions, man. But are they trying to, enforce their moral code onto other people, right? Like that's the distinction. Like you are entitled to your opinion. If you don't want to be gay, don't be gay, right? But to discriminate against homosexuals or to legislate against homosexuals, or whatever, that's like the type of shit they're talking about, right? So we're talking about that type of person, then yeah, by all means, you take on that view, as an existential threat, right? Because it is.
For medical reasons that I'm too stupid to understand. She says she thinks it's wrong and wrong because it's physically destructive ultimately. I'm not competent to evaluate that, but I can't say she's a homophobe. I happen to know she doesn't hold it against the many gay people she knows. But is her theory of being opposed to it, is that homophobia? Because phobia implies an unreasoning fear, like Bela Lugosi, a black cat. When a black cat crosses his path, he freaks out and shoots it because he's an ailurophobe or something. He had this insane fear of cats. Didn't just dislike them, but was horrified. That's a phobia. Or you're afraid of the dark, so you can't go to sleep. That's a phobia. But having a different opinion on whether homosexuality is right or not, I don't agree with that position. But
that doesn't even imply. Well, so what you're saying is that it does inherently it does harm, right? It is a harmful practice, and you have no proof of that. So, where's the evidence for that? That two people loving each other in that way is a harmful practice.
And it is a reasoned position. And so I will not call it a phobia, because that's a tactic to get you to say, well, I don't have to listen to them. I know I'm right. Why confuse myself with any other view? And that's what's happened with racism. We now hear, well, this goes way back at least to Daniel Moynihan and a good thing he did on...
And when I was listening to that, I was thinking, when you're talking about, if you're saying that homophobia is a harmful practice, and presumably, with what he was referencing there, probably gay men and anal sex, right? Like, well, then would it be harmful if straight people did it as well, right? Like, so that was actually the argument. Was against anal sex, not necessarily being gay. So you could be gay and not have anal sex, right? It's entirely possible. So I don't know.
crime in the black community and so forth, where he said it really seems there's a big correlation between lacking a father in the home and kids growing up without a moral compass, and that's why you've got these murder rates and gang violence. People said, "Oh, you're a racist." Why? For what? What did he do?
Yeah, in fact, can I call you Bob? Is that right? Or do you want?
Yeah.
Okay, so Bob, even just like within an hour ago, someone made the exact same comment to me on Twitter about this. That you, I wish maybe I have it here, but that you made some comment about fatherless black homes or something like that. And
that's the fact. There's no debating that, except for people that just don't like the idea. You can't point out a problem as a first step to trying to clarify and solve it. If you say there's a problem, you're a bigot. You see what I mean? They have stretched out racism and bigotry to the point where it is meaningless, but that's what they want to do.
But I think his point was though that fatherless homes might be a problem, or is a problem, but you didn't mention that this occurs in other races as well. You just mentioned the black race.
Well, take a look at the statistics. Now, why is this the case? It's not because there's any genetic inferiority to blacks. I mean, it seems to me, I don't know enough about genetics, but if you had a genetic difference, such as the Ku Klux Klan.
So just not being a eugenicist does not make one not racist. Just for clarification, I mean, the two could be, infused, but not necessarily. They don't have to be.
And say you couldn't even have intermarriage between the races. I mean, you'd be a different species. And it just seems to me that is, except the Ku Klux Klan, so. But the thing is, why does this problem exist? Well, because certain leftist politicians, especially with LBJ, said that we need to get these people and
there they go. Now they're railing against the left. Let's do it. GeoSam says having an opinion doesn't mean you're correct. No, it doesn't. And it doesn't mean that we have to validate everybody's opinion. We can say that people have uninformed opinions. People have, they're misinformed. They're uninformed. People that have bad opinions all over the place all the time. We don't have to validate them. Like, yeah, it's your right to believe that, man, but it's, that's fucking stupid.
LBJ used the N-word about it. We need to get them in our pocket, and with the war on poverty thing, we'll do that at least for the next half century. And so they're being manipulated by people up to keep them down, and have managed to do it by flooding them with welfare money and so on. It's not their fault. That's an absurd notion. But the thing is, they find themselves in this situation, and it's inculcated and reinforced by charlatans like Al Sharpton, a known liar, tax cheat, etc., just so he can continue to virtue signal his way into wealth. And it's very obvious, especially because there's a growing number of.
Well, so you can have good points and be a racist too. Opinions based on personal preference. So yeah, personal preference, exactly. And once again, that's I always put pedal in the George Carlin. That's my favorite. One of my favorites is I have the right to my opinion. My opinion is you have no right to your opinion. Yeah.
Black thinkers and writers that point it out too.
Yeah.
It's not just a white opinion, and it's only a black problem because they have been victimized by the people that are trying to manipulate them.
Let me. I don't know if you can see this, but you'll probably remember it. I think it's regarding Trayvon Martin.
Mm-hmm.
You probably can't see this, but do you recognize?
Yeah, I know what it is. Yeah.
Okay, so you wrote. So the title here is Michael Brown's parents go to an odd place to speak out against the Ferguson police, and then you wrote, what she should be mourning about is that her son was a worthless thug, another Trayvon martyr. So what did you mean by that statement?
Well, exactly what I said. This guy was no damn good. He tried to wrestle away the policeman's gun and shoot him with it. There was no hands up, don't shoot thing. That was shown later to be a lie. And this whole thing was based on this thug who was robbing a store, shoplifting.
Okay, so he compared this brown guy to Martin was what he did, and then were the two cases similar? I don't even remember enough about that.
And
there were so many things going on at that time.
And then refused to cooperate with the police and then tried to shoot the policeman. He's just a worthless thug. He happened to be black, but that's not really the relevant thing. Do I say anything about him being black? Now some people say, but the word thug, that's inherently racist. No, it's not. Do you know what a thug is? It's from the Thuggee sect of people in 19th century India who would waylay travelers. Hey, can you help jump my car here, my camel, whatever? And then once you got down and helped them, they would garrote you with a scarf and bring the money to the Mother Kali fundraiser. These were the bad guys in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. They actually
it's the problem with that type of language, right? Like using that type of language when writing a piece like this, right? It's divisive and it's hyperbolic. And to refer to somebody as a worthless thug, right? Like once again, that's devaluing a person based on what I mean. You think if people are living a criminal lifestyle, they probably come from a disadvantaged upbringing, right? They probably have single parent household, or maybe they didn't even live with their natural parents, whatever the circumstances are, right? They probably come from poverty, and a lot of people end up coming out the other end of that being productive members of society. So to say that those people are worthless because in that moment they take a bad action, right? It's not a good look. Now, to argue whether using the word thug in that situation, in that context, is racist in of itself, right? But then you call Trayvon Martin Trayvon Martyr. This is like some Trumpian shit, right? Like giving somebody a nickname. Yeah. Sam says an opinion can be informed or uninformed. The key is how it's supported. Yeah, yeah. Can you convince me, sway me to your opinion through reasoned argument or emotional appeal, however you achieve it, right?
And so we speak of all predator criminals as thugs, but that has to do not with their race. It's like when Denny's used to be Sambos. People, racist. Wait, little black Sambo wasn't an African. He was a South Indian. And not that I have no interest in that or sympathy for it, but it's based on somebody's ignorance or lying. The word has become stretched out of all recognition and on purpose to give you the license to shut people up. My point is, look at what's happened here. It doesn't matter what that kid did. It's the fact that he is black shows it's an injustice, and the overriding assumption is if you're an African American.
Now, this is the question. To shut people up. It gives you license to shut people up. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, right? If people have influence and they say don't listen to this person and other people listen to them, right? They're not saying you can't speak, but the people who are declining to listen to you, and because somebody else who has influence maybe tells those people, right? So it's going to be just a greater number of people who are choosing not to engage with you, choose not to listen to your ideas. And, that might be persuasive to you to, I don't know, apologize for your statements, maybe reassess your arguments, your reasoning, maybe performatively, you could just say you're sorry and not really mean it, right? I don't know. If it was important to you to remain engaged with that segment of a crowd, right? Or you could just completely disengage, which Price has basically done, right? So, well, I don't give a fuck. I just won't talk to you, which I guess is fine. But the problem is that on the other end of that, they're over here complaining about it, right? Rather than engaging with the people who are criticizing them. They're basically just saying, well, I'm just going to go over here and bitch about it and double down on my argument, but not actually address the criticisms of my argument. In any meaningful sense.
You can, by definition, you can do no wrong. And therefore, the next step is anything you do cannot be considered wrong. It's the same weird logic we find in radical holiness movements in Christianity, where they say, I've been sanctified by the Holy Ghost, I'm free from sin, and therefore anything I do now does not count as a sin. I've known people from groups like that. That's what's happened here.
Do you think that my guess is it's just a very small percentage that would disagree with what you just said. I think it's very reasonable you said that we don't respect thugs, right? Mm-hmm. And that if you're a mother and your son has a rap sheet really long of all the things you've done illegally, you should mourn that and say it's terrible. But my question would be, why do you think that some people do view this as racist? Is this back to what you said earlier, that it's a way to, the tribalism and way to dismiss, I call it the feel sorry forness religion, that there's certain people who have a propensity to feel sorry for other groups of people more than others.
The bleeding heart liberal.
Yeah, and this is, I come from the perspective that I think there's a reason why people vote, let's say, Republican or Democrat. All around the world, there's these divisions, and there's a reason for it, and that is because some people
feel sorry for ism. That's amazing. People who have empathy for other people, the bleeding heart liberals. People want to help other people, or are able to actually realize that there are nuance to the circumstances that people endure in life, and not everybody has an optimal upbringing into the world, right? And certain things are not in one, in one's control. I don't know. It's like people have free will, in my opinion, to an extent, right? But there are circumstances which might put one at a disadvantage. It might make one more inclined to engage in illegal criminal activities or whatever, and there might even be a segment of the culture that portrays that in a positive light, that encourages people to take that road. And do I agree with that? Not necessarily. Does it exist? Yeah. And does it mean that those people are essentially damaged goods, like they're ruined for life, they're devalued as human beings? No. People are able to change. which is the whole reason that, one might engage with Pine Creek or Bob Price in the first place, in the hopes that they could actually change these people's opinions. But that's not usually a realistic expectation, right? These people are what you call set in their ways. They're inflexible.
Their intuitions or how they were raised or whatever, it's the soft love versus the hard love. And so a person who would take what you said there and say, but it's not their fault, it's because of the system they were placed in. Whereas I think guys like you and me would say, but wait a minute, there's people who maybe have had a raw deal in life, but they don't go out and kill and rob and do all these things. And so at some point, a person's responsibility has to fit in here. So
the deck is stacked, but you're not simply the logical outcome of something. You're not just a function of a machine. And look at the people with the same sort of background who resisted those temptations and went on to do great things. But what happens to them? They get denounced by race hustlers as acting white, which implies that success is...
Race hustlers? Race hustlers. I've never heard that term before in my life. GOCM says, what makes an opinion worth considering is the reasoning and evidence behind it. Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, right? And also, support turns an opinion from just a belief into a claim with potential merit. Yeah, I mean, it's helpful, right? Show me the evidence,
Possible, despite the fact that we have had a black president, we're not got a black vice president, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Somehow we're back in the 50s with Bull Connor, and they've created a fantasy world here, and so they try to keep people down on a Democratic plantation, as black people like Candace Hopkins says that we're not going to stay on the plantation licking your boots, and that's so it seems to me that it's simply a gimmick. People will say, well, Price, that this is personal, not political. If you think that, you are very naive, because the whole idea, once that thing was put on, that clip of her was put on the internet or the news or whatever, it was weaponized and for the particular purpose of erasing any moral distinctions. Race A does it, it's bad. Race B does it, it's good, or at least not so bad. And that is social, civilizational suicide.
Yeah, I was thinking, this reminds me of what happened just a couple days ago on Sunday with Will Smith. And I was thinking to myself, I think it's John Voight, Angelina Jolie's dad, who's an actor and an outspoken Republican. If he would have walked up and slapped Chris Rock, my suspicion is...
So this is apparently after the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing, which, I don't know, a lot of people would say, I tend to agree with. I think that was staged. I think that was a part of the show myself. But I don't know. I don't know what y'all think. But that was kind of my hot take on that one. That you say basically if John Voight had come up on stage and slapped Chris Rock, it wouldn't have gone over well, right? Like white people can't do this, black people get away with it. Is what they're saying here. And I saw another video recently. I got turned on to a channel of this racist white chick who has similar hot takes, and wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's one way of looking at things. Theoretically, good to see you. Greetings, race hustlers. we're gonna have to use that one up. That's funny. I've never heard that before in my life.
Been escorted out of the building.
Yeah.
But when Will Smith does it, he's not. Now, I don't know, but my suspicion is that race is a factor here, and that it's actually more racist not to escort Will Smith out than to leave him there. Like it's like you're saying it's okay, and and some people would say that you can't even say anything against Will Smith here because you don't know him, and But would they say the same thing about John Voight?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there is always more behind what someone does, good or bad, than we know, since we don't have telepathy. But you don't have to know that. That kind of thing, it's utter agnosticism about people's motives and their effects. That is that stymies any kind of like doctrines of absolute predestination. That this was another way of saying, given your genes and your environment, you can't really blame any murderer, thief, riot, or whatever he does. Well, you might be right. It's possible that every act was dictated by their subconscious because of their upbringing and their genetics. There was no way in the cosmic epic that they were going to do anything else. Well, I don't know if that's true.
G. Hello, G. Welcome. Alan Watts spoke many times in his blurbs about the interview mechanisms of the media and what their function was. Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier, and the way that news media works, right? When you think about it, this is kind of a tangential topic, but they tend to pick people, right, who are either, A, they're controversial, but B, they are also attractive, right? There's something attractive about them. And, I think that's the fundamental difference between journalism proper and the propagandism that is inherent in the media, because they want it to be, flashy. They want it to be enticing. They're trying to draw people in. So there's a form of, I guess it's like the casino atmosphere. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is there, but it's going to be kind of bedazzled, like visually appealing. And so they trend towards like hot button issues. Things are going to be provocative. Things are going to incite like this emotional response that's going to keep people riveted and keep people glued to what's going on. I had a family member recently who we had a disagreement because, like, I'm not a Trump supporter. I fucking hate Trump, but she made a false statement about something that Trump had done that was, it was just completely false on its face. And I was like, okay, we can actually like point out the things that Trump has actually done without repeating like random shit that we heard like on alternative media sources or something like that. Like, check your facts. Like, don't just start believing every ridiculous thing because Trump says so many ridiculous things. And now anytime somebody claims that Trump said or did something, then we're going to just immediately accept that that's the fact. And you look into it and find out that it's not. Like, it's just, so yeah, we got to be careful about that too, because we don't want to be peddling in misinformation either.
Even if it is, we have to act as if it were not the legal fiction, or everybody's dead pretty soon.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I lean deterministic, but I come from the point of view that we don't know what effect and what all the causes and effects, and we have to act like what we say makes a difference and change the future. I want to bring up another one that a lot of people would view as racist, thing that you said. Here's a thought. If the Supreme Court forces the Washington Redskins to change their name, I propose the Savages.
Yeah, I tell you, that just, what they took from that is funnier than my attempt at a joke. My point is to say, oh, you don't like Redskins? Well,
you know what the best thing is to do? Take an already hostile situation and make a very off-color joke. Yeah, that's going to blow over well. That's exactly what any rational person would do.
About this? I mean, it's like, it's just as stupid. Nobody would do that, but Redskins isn't savages. It's just a joke. And some people, especially the social justice people, have no sense of humor and can't recognize a joke when they hear it.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard, taking a tweet, in context or whatever. You don't have, but also, there's just timing, once again, there's just the appropriate time to make a joke, and whether or not, I don't I don't find it funny at all. But I imagine the type of people that would find it funny, especially in that context, would probably be racist, right? Like, that's what I'm envisioning.
So what you're saying is you were like Chris Rock that day.
Exactly. Have you ever heard what Chris Rock says about N-word people? He says, he believes that there are N-word people, but that's okay. He doesn't like them either, because that refers to a particular kind of slovenly gang drug kind of thing that he despises. He transcends it. Are they going to dare to call him a racist? Lucky him, no, because that would mean we'd have to...
Yeah, and I don't know if, once again, looking up to celebrities for, guidance on morality or, like intellectual, these, like, opposed to actually really thinking about these concepts and choosing how you're going to act accordingly. Like, oh, just because Chris Rock says it, well, I guess it must validate my opinion, right? No, like, that's not how these things work. And I think it's also, like Chris Rock does like a social commentary on when he's using that word, how, like the fact that they use that word at each other is wrong, right? He's making a joke about it, but he's saying that actually that is not the way people ought to act, right? So he's using it as a demonstrative, and I think that's commonly, misunderstood, right? He's trying to say this is a demonstration of what not to do. This is how you act like a jackass, some of the comments here. Jesus, endorphins. Sorry, I can't read anything above that. Geosampson's media seems to structure interviews to control rather than genuinely platform a free discussion. Yeah, they seem to want to guide interviews in a certain direction, which is understandable, right? But the question is who is guiding the narrative. G says, if you make the people happy, they accept anything. Yep. Fat and happy capitalists. I myself am an anti-capitalist, so that's just my position, man. Geo Sam says, I stopped viewing and listening to Price many years ago due to the same exact controversy. Yeah, I don't remember hearing about it much in the past. This is all fairly new to me. I didn't really know there was a controversy around myth vision, so I'm just not that deep into it. So this is like I've been learning about it all throughout the week. So
Myth that a fellow African American did something wrong, and we know by definition that is impossible.
Well, yeah, they define racism differently. They, I don't know how to describe who they are, but some people define racism as that it's impossible to be a person of color and be racist.
Yeah, that's absurd. I mean, look at the attacks that are leveled against other races, Orientals. When black thugs, which are not synonymous terms, start attacking Orientals or Asians, whatever you want to call them, in the street.
Thanks for the clarification, Bob. See, he calls them Orientals, calls Asians Orientals, and then clarifies, "Oh yeah, my bad for using antiquated, terminology. Black thugs are not synonymous, for certain. G says, perfect example of that is Andrew Tate, a man few will interview because they cannot control his narrative. As far as I know, Andrew Tate is like a freaking sexual predator and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, Joe Sam says they stay clear of those they have a hard time manipulating.
It's not racism. I mean, maybe it's just a random target. Who knows? Maybe they're literally colorblind, but I doubt it. Obviously, look at the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad's sect. They say that whites are degenerated proto-humans, that Allah created people black, but the mad scientist, Dr. Yaqub, had managed to create subhumans, and the lighter the shade, the more primitive they were. And that's not racism? The group you don't like is not even human? I mean, the Nazis said that. There were Nazi theoreticians that said, you want to know where blacks came from? Adam and Eve mated with apes. You're insane. And that is racist, but that's what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said too. They just had a different target.
And yeah, Bob Price, again, continually, we mentioned this earlier, like, eugenics and racism are not, like, you don't need eugenics to be racist. There are other, avenues for that. So the fact that you are rejecting these eugenics claims doesn't mean that your ideas are any less racist,
I don't know the context of this. Someone just sent it to me, or I copied and pasted from somewhere in a quick preparation for today, but maybe you can help me what the context is. Let's fast forward to today when I learned that the anthology had been canceled because several of the contributing authors withdrew their work because they didn't want to be associated with Price's introduction. My uninformed gut reaction was to be angry at the authors. Is this just another example of folks getting angry, of off-color humor? Then he goes on to say, let's look at just one page. Commenting on the Me Too movement, Price states, the continuous false rape accusations are seeking to make masculinity, even natural male interest.
There he goes again, off-color humor. I'm not racist. I just like to make racist jokes. That's kind of his excuse here. It's just amazing, man. Amazing. She says, wow, how misinformed. Yeah, I don't know, man. I could be. I mean, I guess I don't think I am, but Geosam says the mainstream media don't like to be challenged. That's true. The thing is, once again, it's an entertainment industry. They need to keep people glued to a television set. That's like been their prerogative for years. And now with alternative media sources, right, they've got to find new ways. Like, so I don't know. Journalism is weird these days. That's all I can say. My Awesome Life says, this dude is just a douche. His verbatim paints a clear picture of who and what he believes in, and clearly he's in denial. Yeah. He's what they call old school, right? That's like it. He's old school racist, He's like, no, I just make racist jokes on occasion. That doesn't make me a racist, does it? And in fact, yeah, he does harbor racist ideologies. Jesus, yeah, if that's what you think of Tate without actually looking past what the media are telling you, yeah, it's not something that's interested me much. I only know of him through his controversy, really, and what other people say about him, and I don't, like, based on that and the few clips I've seen, I don't really care to hear any more from him.
into a rape culture. He moves on to a pensée about pornography. I long have puzzled at the feminist hatred of pornography. It reduces women to sex objects. Absurd. It's simply highlighting an aspect of beautiful women. And then he moves on to the politics of gendered language. Many progressives want to replace he, she, his, her, him with gender-neutral language so as to promote the illusion that the gender is a matter of social construction. And this is only one page. At this point, I was wondering, excuse the harsh language, what the F does this have to do with sword and sorcery? So tell me what this is about. You wrote an intro to something to...
Yes, this was my anthology. I edit fiction anthologies, horror, epic fantasy, things like that. And right, and also this was the introduction to a book called Flashing Swords, a continuation of Lynn Carter's 1970s series of sword and sorcery anthologies. And the reason that I went into this was, like, people faulted me for not just having a typical introduction that says, you're going to like these stories because they're good stories. Who needs that? I said, let me tell you why this is more than just escapist literature. And by sword and sorcery, I mean like Conan the Barbarian and stuff like that. The reason that is needful today is this movement toward demasculinizing men, and in effect saying all masculinity is toxic masculinity. I read enough feminist theologians and secular feminist theoreticians to know that, and I mentioned several of these books, in fact, in the introduction. And I say that this is a big mistake. You're making kids into sissies. Boys can't bang bang play cowboy in India anymore.
So he went full anti-feminist in his intro, and then people were like, I don't want to be associated with that. So they had to pull out of the publishing deal because he was like, you know what you're doing? You're pussifying these kids. You're making them weak.
That's too much like actually murdering somebody. You've got to be kidding. Don't you realize what kind of world these kids will grow up in? They need the masculine virtues and the feminine virtues.
I'll stop you here. I just want to say I was raised Mennonite, pacifistic, and even we played cops and robbers as kids and with big guns and stuff. But anyhow, go on.
I think Andrew Tate would probably agree with that hot take, don't you think, G? Geo Sam said, old school seems like a term that can excuse abuse and accountability. Can't, yeah, I mean, right? I mean, I've had people in my family who have, definitely had racist ideas, and older people. And yeah, it's one of those things where, excuse me, I think G took off on us. He didn't like my hot takes on Andrew Tate, my uninformed takes. But yeah, I've had those older people make racist comments in my family and anti-Semitic comments in my family and stuff like that, to where the younger kids all kind of look at each other, and we have that like look of like, what the fuck, but nobody says anything to that person. And sometimes I think, is it like worth the argument at Thanksgiving? Not anymore. This is like years ago. We haven't done this in years. But years ago, I'd be like, is it worth the argument? Should we tell Grandma how racist that was? Or should we just let it go?
You were saying that that the reason why you put this in is because you wanted... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, return to masculine virtue and the inculcation of it, rather than having a drive toward a unisex model in which there is one sex and it's female. That men should all be like women and everything would be fine because all...
What the fuck is he talking about? There's one sex and it's female? Is that what's happening here? Returning all people into women, according to Bob Price now. So yeah, no conspiracy theories or no problematic ideas here. We're just turning everybody into women. Sure, Bob. Yeah, go have another drink, Uncle Bob. Geo Sam says Price don't want to be accountable for his rhetoric. It's pretty simple. Yeah, no, well, he clearly, I mean, he is pretty staunch with this belief here. We're just feminizing the whole human race now.
World's ills come from masculinity, patriarchy, and so on. Well, there's a lot of awful stuff that has been done in the name of that. Luckily, we're beginning to evolve beyond it, but the solution is not to go all the way to the opposite extreme. And so I'm saying a good thing to do with your kids in part of their education is to have them read Robert E. Howard, Conan stories, Edgar Rice Burroughs, John Carter of Mars, Tarzan, Doc Savage, and so forth. These show...
have them read about fictional strong men. We'll make them real strong men. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Resourceful, strong men who have regard for strong women. They're brawny, but emphasize brain over brawn. I mean, they're very good things for kids to read, so boys don't grow up just to be limp-wristed sissies. And that, again, has nothing to do with sexual orientation.
So if they read Conan the Barbarian, they won't grow up to be sissies. And also, it has nothing to do with whether or not they're gay.
Right,
just for clarification. Bob Price, everybody. That's the genius that is Bob. Geo Sam says it used to be that we were turning Japanese. What happened? I really think so.
Let's not paint everybody with the same brush on that. It has nothing to do with gay straight issues. It just has to do with masculinity and femininity, each of which is great. And I hate to see either one of them subsumed in the other.
Yeah, like these feminists that you've read, do they say that all masculinity is bad?
Yeah, I've read, not every one, of course, but I've read various ones like Shulamith Firestone, The Dialectic of Sex. I can't think of this one's name, but I, Bitch, and various others. Not all feminists. I mean, everybody draws distinctions, which wave of feminism you're part of. But you do constantly hear, in reading in this field, claims that it's all bad. There is war, for instance, only because men have been in charge. And so we got to take the gun out of the hands of the chimp. And I just think that, yeah, we, to a great degree, that's true. But it's because, as with everything.
Do you have a minute? Would you like one? Would you like to not spend your whole day planning your whole...
True, it's because, as with everything, it took people an awful long time to become enlightened. That doesn't mean everything they did was wrong. And as with the trans thing, I have always, when I've, on the rare occasions I've addressed this, I've said, I take people as they come. I don't care what they are. I have friends who are gay, straight, Satanist, traditional Roman Catholic, Moonies, communists, people who think Marx didn't go far enough. I love that. The more diverse, the better. I have friends who are Africans.
Would you, with trans people, would you, if they wanted to be referred to as a certain pronoun, would you do it?
No, I'm afraid I will not let people tell me what to say.
Okay.
But if they have made the transition and now say a man who does this like Bruce Jenner and becomes a woman.
Speaking of which, funny thing, later on, I think, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I am remembering correctly, later on in the video with Derek Lambert and Gnostic Informant, I believe they actively misgender one of these YouTube content creators they claim is attacking them. So
I'd say, yeah, I'd say she in that case. But all of this stuff with where they start parsing it to the point where we supposedly have 150 genders and you have to use the right pronoun or you'll be fired or something, that is lunacy. But I respect people's identity choices and I see them as individuals. I don't. I remember once at a Lovecraft convention, a couple of people that liked my work came up to me and asked me to autograph a couple of my anthologies. These guys were screaming gay. I mean, you couldn't have had a more gay stereotype. My reaction was one of a kind of fatherly compassion. I felt like these people are mine, like my parishioners or my family or something. They appreciate my work, and I appreciate them as they are. I think of friends who are gay, and I've often said I would never want them to convert to being straight. It's integral to their personality, which I love. I just people are people to me. It's just that you also have to see the forest and not just the trees. And it seems to me that something is going wrong in our culture when suddenly you have a huge occurrence of young girls wanting to transition to male. Like it's almost never the other way around. And what is going?
It may have been. Okay, it may have been the Steve McRae stream, actually. Now that I think about it. So Derek wouldn't have been involved in that. But we'll see. We'll see.
There's something wrong. I think this is a symptom.
We're going to go through some
of something bad in terms of society. I think it's becoming like what Weber or Durkheim, what we call anomie, a normalist society where there are no shared values anymore. And such a society is very likely doomed, which I think ours very likely is. But in the meantime, the individuals, bring them on.
This man just does a lot of rambling, We're, half hour into this video here. As you can see, he's just frothing at the mouth. The man just will not stop spewing whatever he said. Like, it's hard to keep track of it, especially at this speed. But, either way, regardless, he's just saying shit. My Awesome Life says, ha ha ha, never the other way around. Not sure what you're referring to there, but...
Yeah, I have a similar attitude as you. My fear, this is my fear, is that... some young kids, let's say teenage years, like in my son's high school, if you come out as trans, you get a ton of love and attention. And sometimes I wonder if them transitioning is to get this love and attention. And it's not so much of a difference between gender and biology.
Yeah, I suspect so, because otherwise, why? I mean, it's a symptom of isolation, and it is correlated, it can't demonstrate causation, I think, with all the internet bullying and the suicide that results from that. There's much more bullying going on, like on different fronts in different media than there used to be, and it's always been a problem. And then this comes, especially when girls are criticized because they don't fit the fashion model stereotype. Well, it makes sense to me that they might say, well, I'm not really making it as a girl. Maybe I'll try something else. If I'm a boy, that's not going to matter. I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised.
You're talking about like fat shaming or something? Like, you be trans because you're overweight, or maybe you got like big bones or something. I don't know. My Awesome Life, he said that girls want transition to man and not the other way around. Oh yeah, yeah. It's weird. These people become hyper fixated on like one or the other. It's either trans women in bathrooms or it's trans men in the military. But they're usually like they just fixate on one or the other, and it's you can tell like based on their other like other predilections they have that they're probably going to lean that way, because usually I see like the ones that are anti-trans, anti trans women like typically tend to be the ones who are more into like traditional Christian value, and the ones that'll lean towards anti-trans man are the ones that are talking about like the argument they're making basically that men are the one that are being attacked. So in either case, though, it's the party that the trans person is transitioning to, their side is under attack, right? Somehow this devalues them as a human being. We were talking about this not long ago, that it devalues me as a man that trans men exist, right? Somehow. And apparently is a threat to me in the competition for mates, right? Which is the way that kind of a typical alpha male might observe the thing, right? If you're talking about like, whatever, like structural hierarchy and primate, the primate hierarchy or whatever.
Okay.
So is that immoral? Well, no. The only immoral part of the whole trans thing is when kids are actually indoctrinated by leftist teachers to say, well, maybe you ought to switch over. And so they had no business doing that. And especially suggesting medical procedures that may do permanent harm, which is why you have an unusual number of suicides among people who have transitioned. And various adults that say, I did that, boy, I wish I hadn't. And that doesn't mean everybody's going to do that. I mean, Bruce Jenner's likely to do it anytime soon. And it doesn't say anything about any individual you meet. It's just you got to see the forest and the trees and wonder what is going on here.
Yeah, I think it's very reasonable to say that if someone is considering transitioning, that they have access to people who have transitioned and regret it. And read those stories. I want to bring up another one here. This is about if Black lives matter so much, why don't their fathers want to be a part of it? We kind of touched on this already, but this is something you wrote, I think, right? Male children of such families have no male role models in the home and wind up getting anti-socialized by street gangs, channeling their burgeoning male energies into predation and savagery, the state of pre-civilization. No wonder they don't take school seriously, lacking discipline at home. And you go on. Did you write this?
Yeah, I can't take credit for the, whatever that is, the meme or something like that, though I like it. I just don't want to steal credit for whoever did come up with it. Let's see, I did write it, and it seems to me, again, that is obviously true. And what's so ironic is I am explicitly saying this is a result of bungled child rearing. It's not the result of people being genetically disposed to savagery. Now, that would be racist, but I'm not saying that. If we pursued it a step further, I would say this is because of certain government policies.
Fucking unmute here. Gosh. My awesome life. Yes. Pride and unity. GeoSam says Price is a mess. GeoSam also says Price has always had these views. Nothing new here. Yeah, it seems not. He shows no signs of coming around on these issues, right? This is an upload from a couple of years ago that Doug reposted, obviously. So, and apparently this is, influencing the people over at Myth Vision now, who are, depending on your take on the situation, they may or may not be said to be endorsing or excusing these views, right? By having this guy on, and I guess that's ultimately the question. Like, he's giving Price a platform, even if he's talking about other things other than this, right? Is it the right thing to do, or not? And with somebody who has a large platform like that, I can see how it could be a very difficult decision if you feel like personally like indebted to this person, or whatever the word you might use, like have some type of personal relationship with this person. So if that is a decision of doing what you see as being, like truly virtuous, and not just about the platform. I don't know. My awesome life says oh, transition is why trans people commit suicide, not because of judgments from assholes everywhere they look and from trauma. Yeah. Yeah, that's, I don't know of many people who successfully transition and then commit suicide as a result of that. I don't think I've heard those stories. I have heard some people who regret their transition and detransition with varying degrees of success in that. There's also varying degrees of success in the process initially, right? Like it's something that they've been perfecting over the years as this has become more prolific. And it's still not something that's done so commonly that isn't still, I mean, I think it's coming out of the experimental phase, right? Like they have more expertise now, but that's only been very recently as far as the having very successful outcomes medically. What happened there? Okay. That said my Bluetooth disconnected or connected or something.
At least with LBJ. It has nothing to do with the guilt of the black culture. They've been set on a deadly course, and you can see the results. There's no denying the statistics. In fact, one state is now suggesting, or maybe they've enacted it already, that in punishments for misbehavior, you adjust it to racial identity. In other words, they expect African American kids to be hellraisers. Like, I mean, they might be right depending on why they think it is. But look what they're doing. They're just ignoring the problem. And
is that what they said? Is that really what they're saying? I've heard an argument that people of color just tend to be more like tense and defensive around law enforcement because they tend to be stopped and harassed and victimized more often by law enforcement. So they automatically have a fight or flight response once they're engaged with those. And if the cop does anything threatening, could be perceived as threatening, right? They might be committing, an act of aggression, right? That might be perceived as an act of aggression by that person. That might not be perceived that way by a white person. I was presuming, I guess, that it's a white cop more likely, but I think some people of color would say, if it was any cop, just a person with a badge, automatically would trigger that response. But I don't know.
Say it's racist, except that I don't know why they view the greater incidence and the greater probability of black misbehavior in school. They might also see it as the result of bad policies, but people that make rules like this very likely are on the bandwagon with the people that made the bad policy. So I don't know what they're thinking, but it's certainly not going to help anything.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that that just because African American families are not, let's say, married, that they're still.
Yeah, so he's using non-marital here, which doesn't necessarily indicate whether or not the father's in the home. That's once again just that's fallacious, but of course they're going to pull that graph. Some life says, I knew a few trans people with deep suicidal thoughts, but that was ongoing from childhood trauma. Yeah, there's other reasons that people are suicidal, right? Might not even be related to the thing you're thinking of. Correlation, causation. Don't commit the fallacy. And GeoSim says the on-screen post-reflection is not what's being said. Doesn't reflect what's being said. Yeah.
Men in their lives, and so that you can't make that conclusion that it's broken homes that's causing the problem. Have you heard that?
Well, if there are men in their lives, that's not what I'm criticizing. Like, for instance, in Pacific Islander cultures, often an uncle is just as important as the father and has different initiatory roles and all that. I'm not saying, I mean, you might as well say, well, if the biological father skipped town and nobody ever saw him again, and the mother remarried, and so the kid has a stepfather, obviously that's not what I'm talking about. It's the absence of male mentorship, like Robert Bly describes in his book Iron John, which everybody used to read and probably still should.
Why do you think male mentorship is important?
You need to learn how to be a man from somebody who is one and learned the hard way, or from his own male mentor. But you need to have male values inculcated by people that know where it's at and why it's good. Like, should you strike back at a bully, for instance? Like Opie asks Andy Taylor on the show, or I'm a big fan of The Rifle, and I love the way the relationship between the father and the son is depicted, and how they admire each other and teach each other, and the father is teaching principles of honor and so forth. Now his wife.
So that's again, it's just a lack of men in the house. That's the problem. You don't have enough men rearing children, I guess, even though according to the trad cons, right? Like that's the woman's job, and men are supposed to be working, I guess. But then when they get home, they teach the children how to be manly if they're boys, but not if they're girls. Because if they're girls, they should just leave them alone and let the mother teach them how to be submissive women, right? I don't. Is that what we're going for here? GeoSam says the YouTube live chat doesn't reflect what's showing on screen. And quote, if you lie down with dogs, you get fleas. Okay, yeah, I think that it's probably an issue with Prism.
Has died.
Sorry about that.
So he's the only parent, but you get the impression, but he's only got the one son. You get the impression that if there was a daughter involved, he would hasten to marry. That nearly happens in one of the episodes. So it's not like it has to be perfect, but there's a basic structure. And when you have Black Lives Matter, for instance, saying that they are against the nuclear family.
I said this 3 times and didn't show it. That's weird. Yeah, I can't get a good look at the preview there. I don't know what goes on with this thing. It just glitches out.
To see it dismantled. What are they aiming at there? Well, they are anarchistic.
Would Black Lives Matter say that?
What's that? Oh, yes, they do. It was until recently. It was on their website as part of their statement of principles. They admit they're Marxists and that they're against the nuclear family. And of course, what they want to do is not to have chaos with people wild in the streets, though they also don't seem to mind that. But they're aiming at a state in which children would be brought up by the state, not by the parents, which you had to some degree in the Soviet Union. You better not indoctrinate your kids in religion. We, the state, will.
Did Black Lives Matter ever say that? What is he talking about? That sounds absurd.
What to think about that? And I get very disturbed when fellow atheists say, parents teaching their kids, bringing their kids up in a religion is child abuse. No, even if I don't agree with the religion, what you said is Stalinism, and I'm not for it. It's like that's what I see in Hillary Clinton, who's a confessed.
Oh wow, yeah, this dude's off his rocker. He's like, no. If you say that religious indoctrination is child abuse, then you're a Stalinist. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What the actual fuck are you saying?
Linskyite. She writes this book. It takes a village. It's like a kibbutz kind of a thing, I guess. But I think she probably should have called it. It takes a gulag because it's the anti-family thing is pro-state ownership of children. You see that again with these teachers telling kids, "Well, we're going to talk about you changing gender for your parents." Why do they think they have the right to do that? Because they think the state owns the children, not the parents.
Well, you know what? Maybe they're right that the state does own the parents because the state's paying for the kids. You get like, I've been a bit.
Nobody owns the children. The children are property. With what they're advocating, if anything, and what people do. What we do, right, is the state intervenes on behalf of the child if it's determined that the child is being abused or neglected or what have you, right? Like that's the way that works or is supposed to work. Now, am I saying that the system never fucks up? No. Am I saying that the system is never abused? No. I think I've had it done to me. But the way you're arguing is like that the people are trying to have the state just take and raise children like some kind of dystopian novel is wild. It's wild to me, and I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a person to say you shouldn't have kids unless you can afford them, and so if you have kids, and basically the government's paying for their food, shelter, and clothing, they basically own the kids.
I see what you mean.
Speaking of, I think you brought up Black Lives Matter. Here's another one that someone sent me, where I copied and pasted from somewhere. This article, Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. You wrote this?
June 3rd? And I would swear by every word of it. I just reread it last night.
And I feel like this is just like Pine Creek is just glorifying this whole this thing. Like he's just like a total fanboy right now. He's like, I love this stuff. Yeah, give me more, Bob. He's not pushing back at all. Somebody said it's not true. My comments earlier either. Got you. We're being censored by YouTube live chat or something. Well, no, Prism operates independently from YouTube. So if your comments are down in the chat, they're not showing up on the screen. That's an issue with Prism. That's the stream service I'm using. I don't know why that's happening. Captain Disc, good to see you. Yeah, we're looking at the other end of this whole myth vision thing here. So I was watching earlier Derek's interview with Pine Creek from a couple of years ago, and now we're watching the Robert Bryce interview. Just thought it'd be interesting to kind of see these guys stick their foots in their mouths Yeah.
Okay, give us the synopsis of what this is about and what the point you were trying to make.
Mainly, most of what we've been talking about, that like the minstrel show, the poster there reflects a scene from Gone with the Wind, where the war between the states is over, and the carpetbaggers come from the north and are busy recruiting freed slaves as a voting bloc. And they say, "We're your friends, and you're going to vote like your friends vote." And it's just a new kind of enslavement, quote unquote. Why don't you switch over to our plantation? You won't be picking cotton, but you'll be putting the right thing in the ballot box. That was already patronizing racist exploitation, and it continues to be that way, as people like Candace Owens and others say today. Blacks need to get off the Democrat plantation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've covered.
It's like one of these race anti-realists or whatever, where I think like literally the opposite is true. Like everything since the Emancipation Proclamation is like worse than slavery.
That sort of thing. Let's move more to politics. Well, this is our politics too, but more about the party and Trump. Are you a Trump supporter? Or were you?
Yeah, big time.
Is there anything you don't like about Trump?
Well, he plays golf, which I hate. But what's not to like, especially if you have a cynical, smart-ass sense of humor?
Well, what about him grabbing women by the,
We don't even know if that's true. One woman said that she was on a plane with Trump started groping and grabbing her as if an octopus was entangling her. I don't believe that. Could that?
Yeah, I don't know if any of the rest of this is going to be particularly relevant. All right, so just for shits and giggles here. We'll
Aftershock Festival returns to Sacramento for its biggest year yet with Blink 182.
So, you probably can't even hear me. So Steve McRae, in the aftermath, also jumped on the bandwagon here and streamed with S.J. Thomason for some reason, some other people I've never heard of. Basically, like, we're standing with Myth Vision. We're done with the cult of atheism.
StreamYards, because I think it's going to be better for this type of panel discussion. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to this. I really am, because there has been some dramatic stuff that's happened in the Atheist Plus community. Hashtag Steve told you so. Hashtag Steve was right. Hashtag we're all right. And so I thought I'd get a little group together to kind of, I think, input on what happened recently. And what happened recently, if you too long didn't read version. And by the way, if you're out there and you can hear me, let me know, because I have to make sure the audio is working, because I haven't done this for a while. I know you guys can hear me inside. Hopefully they can hear me out there, the people listening. And just recently, Derek Lambert from Myth Vision, if you guys have knowledge of who he is. He has a very popular channel, a very good channel, and I was fortunate one day to actually be able to talk to Derek. I think I was on, I don't even remember what channel it was on, but he was a very nice guy, very civil, very, very erudite. I mean, this guy is super, super intelligent, very, very knowledgeable, way out of my league when it comes to, dealing with.
You'll have to straighten SJ out on that.
Theological stuff. So I invited some theologians in, people that know what they're talking about, that particular topic, to kind of discuss what actually happened and why Derek decided to leave the cult of Atheism Plus, what Atheism Plus is, how it's been used to weaponize atheism in the last, 5, 6, 10 years, maybe, probably even longer than that, and the ramifications of it. And so let me introduce what I got. S.J. Thomason. Welcome, S.J. I've got Dave Paulman, which I always butcher his name, but I think that's right. Is it Paulman?
You nailed it.
Awesome. And of course, TJ Tuttle, of all people. Boy, you guys haven't seen him in ages.
No blast from the
I don't even remember who he is. But anyways, so let's kind of dive into this. I'm going to turn over to Dave real quick, because he kind of, I think, probably followed this quite exceptionally well of what happened with the fall of Atheism Plus and why Derek Lambert has decided to leave the cult of Atheism Plus. So anyways, Dave, fill people in what just happened, because this was I think a turning point. I think this was huge in my opinion.
So Steve, I don't really have a history with Steve. I think I talked to him once, and I occasionally comment on his shit. I've been listening to him. I became kind of fascinated with him. He was already kind of excommunicated from the cult before I arrived on scene, so I heard stories about Steve. But I wasn't there for all that. And so the more I learn about him, I find him to be kind of an interesting character in this whole narrative, and the way he is, he describes, whatever he perceives as the oppressive atheist regime as well, or cult of atheism plus, as he refers, to it. So he was kind of early to this game that's being played now, and so this, like, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes or whatever, that type of shit. That's kind of what we're seeing here. And so Steve, like, apparently unsolicited from Derek or Myth Vision, like, got turned on to this and was like, oh yeah, I'm hopping on this. This is right up my alley, buddy. Captive Disc says the bigger your channel, the harder you can fall. Yeah, for sure. And Miles and Life says, thanks for slowing that down. Yeah, Steve is a fast talker, especially, so had to slow it down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got a message from Derek out of the blue a couple days ago, and he was telling me about his intention to leave this, and I got on a call with him, which was kind of interesting because, like, I have talked with Derek before, but not like a lot. It turns out a particular toxic individual who I also recently had beef with was kind of the link between us there. But yeah, I mean, Derek kind of got wrapped in with, I guess, the kind of caved to the pressures temporarily of the leftist woke mob, as we're calling them now, and was, encouraged by them to deplatform Dr. Robert Price, because Robert Price, despite, being pretty well known as I don't think he identifies as atheist, but he's...
I don't know if I would call that temporarily caving. We just saw that was 2 years ago, and he, his performance in that video was, I would say, in competition with his present one. So I'm not sure which is the real character, or if Derek even knows, honestly. He might just be playing a part to cater to whatever audience he thinks he's going to be most successful with. That's my honest assessment right now.
Sort of skeptic, very prominent in the Jesus mythicist community, but he also happens to be very politically conservative. So there's a, I guess, disjunction there between what.
So this guy also says he leans conservative, and which was something that he claimed before to be apolitical. He claimed that he didn't have political leanings, or he wasn't very into it, or whatever he said. And now they're saying, oh, he's actually very conservative.
Typically see with the sort of wokeism that is often assumed to be sort of part of atheism, although they're really not. And so Robert Price doesn't really fit the mold in that sense. I mean, he doesn't really fit the mold in anything. But anyway,
he's a character. I have never had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Price. I wish kind of I had, but I mean, we run in very different circles, I guess, anymore. I mean, there's a lot of overlap, but I don't do theology, right? So I really never had a real reason to bring him on the show or anything like that. But he's always seems very civil, very nice. And so I don't know why anybody would want to cancel him merely because he has conservative views and he doesn't, bow down and kiss the ass of the gender ideologists, because that's exactly what happened. I'll let you know. In fact, I'll let you kind of describe really quick, because the reasons why this has gotten to me is because one of the reasons why Derek left Atheism Plus is because of somebody named Chrissy Hansen. And this guy was on my channel years ago. I kind of made him known in the community, and I apologize for it, because as soon as I recognized the toxicity of this dude, I said, no more. This guy's not going to be around me.
This is them misgendering Chrissy.
Not going to be on my channel. He's a Marxist. He's a communist. He's a socialist. Whatever political thing that he subscribes to. He's anti-American.
Chrissy is a trans woman.
He just says, basically, agree with me or I'm going to try to destroy your life. As a matter of fact, he gets off trying to cancel people. As a matter of fact, Dave, I think you have some insight of what this dude was doing behind the scenes to try to cancel Dr. Price, as well as Derek, and try to take down Derek's channel after he and his wife worked really hard to build it. But I understand, amazing channel. I've watched his podcast a few times, and it's well done. And, they did the same to the Non Sequitur show. They tried to cancel it for the exact same reasons. Now, I'm not trying to say that my show was as big as Myth Vision, but the overlap and the similarities cannot be disputed. I mean, there clearly is the same thing that happened to him, Derek, what they did to me, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Wait, stop. You're not gonna accept that ridiculous offer for your car accident, are you? What do you mean? The insurance company?
That happened to him, Derek, what they did to me, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah, and essentially, as we said, they stopped listening. That's what they did, because obviously he's still got a channel. He can still do, basically what he does, espouse his opinions, but people decided they don't fucking care. And, he's still got an audience, but it's probably not nearly what it was or what it could have been. Right. And that's because, basically you're trying to bat for both teams. Like, I think that's really the problem with these guys. Like, because they can empathize with people who hold really vicious beliefs, right? And in some cases they can hold those beliefs themselves. But then still claim to be part of the rational party. And that's where, like, the dissonance is. So you can't have this, this kind of gut reaction to, like, trans people, say, or what have you, whatever the issue is. That just happens to be one on the table, right? But there's a number of issues where it's like this gut reaction, like this ick factor, and they're like, okay, so I'm going to side with the religious people on this one. Because I feel icky about it. It's not based in reason. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a group of a few different people, including, I suppose, someone I hadn't heathen Queen, or Jessica Heathen Queen, or Jessica HQ. But apparently, her and Chris Hansen and some other people who were like extremely far left were, it was basically a threat against Derek that he had to deplatform Robert M. Price or else he was going to himself be canceled. And then, I mean, I could just tell from talking to Derek about it, it was a really hard thing for him to do because he didn't want to, but, at the same time, I mean, his Myth Vision podcast, that's how he provides for his family. That's how he makes his livelihood. So I guess he kind of felt like...
See, and you're describing two different people here because we just saw him on Pine Creek's channel. He's over here, saying, like, no, I think what Robert said was deplorable. I think it's horrible. And now he's saying that was an act. I was just pretending when I said all that because I actually don't think he's a racist. I actually don't think the shit he said was bad. I actually agree with him, and I lean his way politically. But again, this is according to a third party. Now, if you go back and listen to him in his own words, I mean, he is saying that stuff. He's being a little more, evasive about the question, but nonetheless, he is absolutely capitulating. And so what this guy is saying sounds like the truth, and it sounds like the thing we just saw where he's actually denouncing hateful speech is the act.
Any choice. Anyway.
I don't fault him for it. I mean, it was a hard thing that he had to make. I do not fault Derek for anything. It was a bunch of evil people making him try to do a very, very difficult decision. And I'm glad that he has now stayed with his friend. I really am.
Yeah.
He's back Dr. Price, and I think that's the admirable thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, he initially tried to ask Robert Price to sort of apologize for allegedly saying racist or sexist things, and respect Robert Price for holding his ground on it. He said,
absolutely,
hell no, I'm not.
I told him to screw off.
Yeah, he said he wouldn't cave to the woke mob, and so that was, I guess, when Derek,
the woke cancel culture mob, and we're coming to eat your babies as well.
Platform him. And he's now, since perhaps in part due to recent elections not going the leftist ways, so cultural winds blowing the other direction, Derek has fortunately changed his mind on that and has now reconnected with Dr. Price over it, and will be platforming him again. So and with that, he also announced, he made this video announcing that he's sort of leaving the what do you call it?
Isn't that so weird though? That seems so manipulative. It's like, oh, if you won't pay me to come be on your podcast, then we're not friends, bro. He said this guy was like really influential to him and all this stuff, right? And he said he paid him. and so he paid him for those appearances, right, on the podcast. And then he's like, sorry, I can't have you on the podcast anymore. Can we still be friends? He's like, no, fuck you. But I was like, okay, I'll be your friend if you let me on your podcast. Presumably, pay me to be on there, I guess.
Atheism.
Like that's crazy, right? That's some next level fucking manipulation. That's GSM says if you think you're immune to criticism, often signals arrogance, insecurity, or fear of being wrong. No one is immune to criticism. No, especially if you're a public figure. You're out on the internet, like that's fair game. That's the way it works, man.
Just basically what you're calling atheism plus.
Yeah, I can differentiate those two.
Right.
Yeah. We'll see in a second.
More or less the marriage of far left politics with atheism.
Speaking of atheism plus, Richard Carrier once slept on my couch. If anybody's interested.
Well, he's been canceled too.
The snake ate its own tail on that one.
Yeah.
I was reading Chris Hansen's book today. He wrote a book arguing against the Pauline authorship of Philemon, and right after the table of contents, there's this thing that says content warning. And I read that, and he basically apologizes to the audience, to his readers, because he interacts with some scholars who are racist. And there's this little footnote, and he makes it explicitly clear there he's talking about Robert Price. Like this guy's obsessed.
That's whack. That is so whack, though. I don't even understand why that would be something that you would have to do and would cross your mind.
In an allegedly academic book, you're going to put a content warning in there because you're interacting with the writings of a supposed racist, and you just have to flag that for why?
Because it's virtue signaling. And in fact, TJ, and I'll get to SJ in a second here. I promise SJ, but TJ, you mentioned Robert. You mentioned Richard Carey, right? Yeah. So Dr. Carey wrote 2 blogs about my writings and my work, and I'm telling you, they were not favorable, and he took me way out of context.
I doubt they were.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, go figure, right? He never did, but I didn't try to cancel the guy, right? I just stopped talking to him.
Look, I just think that.
And the problem with that is you can go and look it up. If you look up situations, out in wild, rural America or whatever, you can find countless articles, opinion pieces with situations involving like white males with guns and drugs interacting with the police. And, it'll be like a Florida man story or something like that. But, it's not necessarily like doing what Robert Price did and saying, oh, this thug, this, this gangster, or whatever. And, they don't always include like affiliations like that in those stories, in those pieces, right? As much as they would, or even associating people involved in criminal activities as if they were involved in gang activities, as if those were synonymous when they are not, right? So there's like this loose association game playing out where they will use those trigger words to try to dehumanize people, devalue people, and we'll say, well, I'm not, I'm not saying that all those people like that. I'm just saying most, I'm just saying it's in those areas where they congregate,
A lot of the things.
And then they will say, well, the police don't disproportionately target those areas. No, they are in those areas in response to the crime rates, right?
Things that happen on social media amount to, if you don't agree with my point of view on something, I'm going to take that as you being morally inferior to me, and you should not be able to provide for yourself or your family, or at the very least, at the worst, it's you shouldn't make a living and you should die, or at the most generous, it's you deserve to put the fries in the bag and
Holy fucking shit, dude. Sorry, my phone's getting blown up. Evidently,
beneath me.
A little annoying.
SJ, you're nodding on that. You've lived through this kind of the similar things, and I've seen them go after you pretty hard. I mean, we've had disagreements, but I've always respected you. But I've never gone after you what I've seen from the Atheist Plus community. Holy cow!
No, we had it was really crazy way back when. So I kind of got active on Twitter around 2016, and I had Chris Hansen on my channel to talk about Richard Carrier, because he was going to talk about Richard Carrier and the mythicism and that kind of stuff, and how he didn't endorse mythicism, and how he was agreeing basically with people like Bart Ehrman. And so that was the conversation, and everything back then seemed pretty normal. And then since then, I haven't really followed him too much, so I don't know exactly what he's been doing. But I can say that, but I have seen Heathen Queen I had some interactions with, and I had interactions with a lot of people all the way up until about 2020, when I closed I had a very big Twitter account that had about 22,000 followers or something like that. And I closed it back in 2020 because they were calling my school. I had to go, I mean, they contacted HR multiple times. I had to talk to people and, explain my situation and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought, this account's not even worth it. I don't need the account. I'm going to go to this little account that I have on Twitter and just stay there for a while. But yeah, I'm not saying that Chris Hansen did any of that. Instead, it was people like, I know who it was, actually. I won't name the person now, but it's a person who is from a different country, actually. And so there's no repercussions for me to go back at him, because I know where it came from, because he told me he was going to do that. And so,
yeah.
so there, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff.
So they want to know that they're after you. They want you to.
So it wasn't them, but it was people like them that tried to get SJ fired from her job, apparently, according to SJ, but she's not going to name names.
To see that exactly what TJ said. Look, you don't agree with me. You're morally inferior, I think the words that TJ said, and therefore I feel like I am obligated to try to destroy your life. They make it seem like it's some kind of obligatory moral concern of theirs, which is absolutely ridiculous, because Chris Hansen is one of the least moral persons I've ever met. I mean, the dude is just way the hell out there. This is why I said, look, I want nothing to do with him. And as soon as I started not associating with him any longer, because he'd been a co-host and some other stuff on various shows that I did, he wrote like a blog about me, and I was just, I was Hitler. I mean, I was like, I was Satan incarnate. There's gonna be like a whole new religion of Christianity where you have Satan and you have Steve McRae, and then you have the dominions, the demons and things like that. Because I don't know if he just, I don't know his theological viewpoint, because he's so all over the place. But I do know he's a Marxist, isn't he, Dave? I mean, that's what I would say, Marxist.
Yeah, he also did a hit piece against me, and Hansen is, it was all about like, I'm a transphobe because, well, I mean, it was mostly interesting, but I know he's elsewhere said that I'm like a trans.
So this is where I'm surprised. Chris from Hereticals pops in here, and I had some conversations with Chris in the past. I used to watch the channel. He also knows Atheist Pastor, and so when that debate took place, first on my channel, the eugenics debate, it was like a dumpster fire over here. Then they rescheduled it and they did it over on Chris's channel, and he moderated, and it was a dumpster fire over there. And then subsequently, a lot of there was a lot of blowback from all of that. Not much of it landed on me. Most of it landed on those debaters, I guess, and maybe Chris. I'm not sure how that all worked out. But I was kind of surprised to see it on this panel. I haven't seen anything from Chris, Atheist Pastor. in a long while. So this is kind of a weird kind of throwback, man.
So because I'm not going to refer to him as like a her, which is probably something we should actually say here.
Yeah, I won't do it. No, I'm not. First he was trans, then he was binary, non-binary, then he was tri-binary, then he was a gender fluid. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I just.
Sam SJ once said God doesn't unalive babies; he relocates them. Wow, that's mental gymnastics, but okay.
I don't think any. I mean, I guess I can't speak for some of the people on the panel, but I know you and me at least. Like, we don't believe in this trans BS.
I don't think
it's like what me and James Apperson were saying about sacrificing the babies. You just send them straight to heaven. They'll just get free eternal life. They'll never have to experience suffering and never commit sin.
But he here does. I don't think even TJ does.
We would take masculine pronouns to refer primarily to biological facts about male physiology. That's why we're referring. That's why we're referring to him as Chris and as him his. We're not going to refer to him as her. Yeah, because we just don't. We fundamentally don't believe that. It's not because we are trying to be.
Right. He's a guy. I'm sorry. I'm going to call him a guy.
Sorry, James Apperson and I.
I said a dog. I'm not going to call him Fido. But speaking of dogs, hey, Chris. My dog.
Hey, how are you?
How are you, bestie?
Good, mate. Good. Give me a minute. I'm just trying to get everything sorted out on my end with the tech. So bear with me. If I drop out, I promise I'll be back in a minute.
Do your thing, man. We'll be here.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on the Marxist idea because I find it completely morally irresponsible when you know exactly what happened during the last century with Marxists and how literally 120 million people perished by starvation and all kinds of other means purposely in the USSR, China, and Cambodia. And then you somehow support any of those doctrines that believe in the annihilation of property rights, the annihilation of individual rights. I mean, I think it's morally atrocious. And so I see it sometimes in the universities. As a university professor, I have seen people who are Marxists, not in the College of Business where I am, but also in some of the other colleges. And it's like they're totally unaware of an economic system and basic human motivations. And that's my big challenge with that, because I think to myself, would you like it if I just gave everybody in the class a C no matter what you put in? And then all of a sudden that turns into a D.
I couldn't deal with students like that. I mean, in fact,
all-star apologetic panel for sure.
I'm sure most of you guys have followed the whole Harvard thing, right? The defunding of Harvard, because Harvard will not.
Steve's gonna pat himself on the back later too. He's gonna be like, "Look how diverse we are."
Follow, civil rights.
And note all white.
Have you ever
64 civil rights code?
Have you ever heard of Malcolm Caldwell?
Gladwell or Caldwell?
Caldwell, Malcolm Caldwell.
Doesn't sound familiar.
He was a Scottish academic. He was a Marxist, and just loved what Pol Pot was doing in Cambodia. And so he decided to interview Pol Pot. And everything was going swimmingly until the gentleman apparently said something that offended the dear leader, and he was executed.
Shocker.
Right there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because did you watch that ship that just recently they tried to launch in North Korea? And the ship, I guess, wasn't launched correctly, and the front bow kind of went first. And so it caused significant damage, which was humiliating because Kim Jong-un is sitting there, as this big, leader, and all of a sudden his mighty ship gets damaged. And so he's like, the people responsible will pay for it. He'll figure out who they are and they'll pay for it. And I'm thinking, so, we all know that means they're basically going to strap whoever he thinks who caused it to basically a cannon and blow a hole through their chest. I mean, that's what they do. And yet they call people like Trump fascist and people like Trump Hitler. I'm like, man, if you guys can't see the difference between an actual dictator and Trump, then I don't even want to have a conversation with you any longer. I'm done. I'm not going to do it any longer because that disassociation from reality is something you can't just get past. And I think the same thing is happening in the Atheist Plus community, where they have gone so far left and so far woke, there is no discussion to be had with them any longer.
What is it?
I tried for years and I couldn't do it.
It's like, I care not for your booze. I know what makes you cheer.
I mean, how many times was I canceled by the Atheist Plus?
Oh my God. I think we're beating our head against a brick wall here, aren't we? Yes, we are.
TJ, but I still had resilience and I was always right. And I was.
People kind of inadvertently ran me off from doing stuff publicly because it got too much. Nobody canceled me or anything, but I just got to the point where I was like, some of these people are batshit crazy and I don't agree with hardly anything that they say.
But they expect you to because the tribe. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And man, and I lost some, one or two good friends from basically not wanting to go down the same primrose path that some people were being led down.
Chris is going to come back in just a minute. We got two woke mics. We got two woke on Mike's stream earlier. Yeah.
And you probably know who I'm talking about.
I was woke earlier, but I'm getting sleepy now. Yeah,
a lot of them. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's funny because in my live chat, so like Psalms 23 was saying that that he's happy that my positions have kind of changed and views on atheism, which haven't, by the way, which I respect that he says fair enough. And he makes a good point though. He's basically saying, look, at least you're pushing back against militant atheism, but I always have. SJ can tell you this. That's why SJ and I get along, because even though she is.
Just Sam, I made a photo manipulations for Skylar Fiction with SJ as a fast food takeout window worker. That's fucking great.
back far more against atheism than I would, because I'm not against atheism, but against militant atheists, because the militant atheists are the ones that do not have a shred of integrity. They do not bother to actually read anything about the subject matter. And I can tell you from experience, I'm telling you, Dave will tell you, that their understanding of things like philosophy and epistemology are shit. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, there's no other word to say it. And yet I have tried, I've gone out of my way to explain to them some fundamental concepts. We're talking intro level stuff. And what happens, Dave?
Well, I mean,
they just shit on me.
This is why you have like an objective idiot like Matt Dillahunty is the face of internet.
Here you go, TJ.
There's a name from my past that I'd probably rather forget. Yeah,
it's basic philosophical blunders this guy makes, and he's been at it for God knows how many years, and he's still an oath. I mean, I'm done with this guy. I mean, other than like just to watch like the debates where he gets crushed, like for hilarious reasons, like the one.
Did you watch the Andrew Wilson one?
Yeah, the one with Andrew Wilson.
I love that. I
that was the best.
And I told Andrew, you know what? You didn't do a damn thing wrong. I think James.
You mean the one where Andrew just targeted his partner and started poking his sexual preferences and didn't actually address the argument they were there to talk about?
Probably got the blunt end of that, because James made that happen with modern day debate, right? And he doesn't want to see a debate go to crap, but Andrew was actually debating it. He made a good point, but Matt Dillahunty, like you said, being so sophistic and so full of empty rhetoric, he didn't know how to even begin to address what he said.
I part with Andrew where he likes reification a lot. He'll say something doesn't exist because it isn't an object. And when he starts,
that's a reification policy. Yeah,
I'm like, dude, come on, man, concepts exist.
Well, you got to remember, Andrew is a sophist, right? I mean, he does sophist. He's not ignorant. He knows.
No, he's not. He's slick. What he is he's slick. Yeah.
But he definitely knows rhetoric.
He has
wit.
Chris. He has wit. He has the wit. I'll give him that.
Yeah. I get along with Andrew. I don't know why. Again, we have such fundamental differences in views.
Yeah, I agree with him on some things, and I disagree with him about it.
Both assholes tend to get along with assholes. I think. I don't know. Yeah.
And he's never tried to cancel you, has he?
And I don't think that he would. I don't think he would do that to
somebody. No, it's not his style.
Yeah.
I think Andrew Wilson will go out of his way to try to actually get people to see his point of view, whether they agree with it or not. But if you don't, he's like, okay, cool.
Let me address something too that you said earlier, and that I think it may be something that me and you had talked about before. I don't know if it was you that kind of turned me on to the concept of it, but it was like you were saying that they feel a lot of these activist types feel like they have to engage in cancel culture. They have to go after people, right? Like it's their moral duty. And I think it's something me and you have talked about before about people. Some people don't realize the difference between the concept of a moral.
And once again, their definition of cancel culture here, right, is people saying, I'm not going to listen to you, and then telling other people, like, this dude's a racist and a transphobe and a bigot, you shouldn't listen to them. Right? That's the cancel culture. And, like, in effect, you even have, like, people like, me right now, like, streaming this and hate watching it or reviewing it or whatever. Right, so it's not necessarily bad for their business, but it's they're worried about the negative perception of them, even though their whole gimmick is we don't care what you think about us, which doesn't make any sense, right? Or people trolling them online, or worst case, like they act like it's a threat to their actual livelihood, or their physical person in some cases. I don't know how credible that is. Probably not very. I mean, people talk about shit on the internet. I've seen people, make threats on the internet, and I've been threatened on the internet, and I don't tend to take it very seriously. But that doesn't mean that that's true in all cases. There might be an actual threat, but I don't think that is the case here.
And something being morally virtuous, and those things can be two different things.
Absolutely, and to treat something that could be virtuous as an imperative is a major blunder.
Yes, it is. That is incorrect.
Yeah. Chris, it's funny when people actually know a little bit about philosophy. And TJ, you've come a long way, right?
I have, but thanks to you. I mean,
you're sweet. And I like Dave and SJ and other people in the community.
I couldn't form a what is it, a logical like math equation or whatever fancy stuff like.
I won't break out the math today. I promise.
I do know the rhetorical aspects of philosophy. Like I am versed in a lot of the rhetorical aspects of it. Yeah.
Chris, welcome back.
Good day. How are we all?
Good day. I think you might have a few things to add to this particular topic.
I think I may have one or two things to add. Yeah, it's should be an interesting conversation. Obviously, I watched the video, and look, I completely appreciate and understand where he's coming from because I've been there. I think there's a toxic element within certainly the online atheist community. I think it's something that isn't always necessarily bad intention. I think people are just getting out of religion trying to find their place and can fall into these traps of essentially replacing one pastor with another, for lack of a better term. So yeah, look, I think I'll have a bit to add to it, but I'll be keen to hear what everyone else thinks as well.
Let me turn over to Dave real quick, because Dave was talking about some stuff that really kind of, I think, became the predecessor to why Derek made the decision that he did, right? The preconditions, I guess, because it took a lot for Derek to get where he was at. And when I watched that video, I was like, oh, damn, dude, I got to that point pretty quick. It took Derek a lot longer, but he eventually got there. But I think that Dave has some inside information on that he wanted to put out. And again, I'm not going to say anything about the veracity of this because I don't know and I haven't vetted anything, but I trust Dave explicitly. Dave has not lied to me about anything. And so if he tells me something, I'm going to believe him just by fiat until I have reason not to, because that's what you do when you trust people.
Once again, we found that Derek, reached a bad conclusion, right? That because the information that he got from Chrissy about one person was wrong, didn't necessarily mean that the information they got about Price was wrong, right? So the information about Price is correct, and Price maintains that position, right, unapologetically. But now he feels like he's been manipulated by these people in this circle of the internet over here, and so he's very upset about it. And you don't want to see him when he's very upset,
Your friends. I know it's a weird concept, but hey. But anyways, Dave, what were you saying about the whole thing with Chrissy? Because again, this goes to the malignancy of and toxicity of these people in Atheism Plus that have taken over atheism and the woke community. It's like they're trying to be leaders in multiple different communities, and there's some problems with that and with those individuals. Would you like to discuss that?
Can I just quickly jump in? There is one thing I do want to say really quickly. Chrissy isn't an atheist. Chrissy is
is he a polytheist now?
I think he is a Norse.
Norse, yeah. That's what I wasn't sure what he was before either.
A few years ago, there was a what I'd call a bit of an infiltration from all the pagan community into the atheist community.
Yeah, true, pagans. Yeah. So there's some overlap between that online community, between atheists, agnostics, pagans, as you say, and evidently Christians as well. Like, there's people talking to people. There's overlap within various online communities. It's kind of within the nature of the thing itself. It's what we do. So that's not abnormal at all. But they're saying this is an infiltration of these this particular group into atheism online.
And they align themselves because of far left-wing values, and I guess that brought the two together. Well,
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so
which is like why you're aligning with a Christian right here on this stream, because the equal but opposite reason on the right.
So it was like people like Ocean Keltoy, Chrissy, who are not atheists. I mean, they believe in multiple gods. They're further from atheism than even Christians are. So I just want to be clear that the elements within.
No, I mean, I would say that if you were to believe in one God, then you would have to grant multiple gods. I mean, it's unreasonable not to unless you're given some other reason not to, right? Then you have to. There's meta on the meta. If you grant one God, then why not grant other gods?
The atheist community that align with them are not really atheist community. They're political activists. They're left-wing political activists, and nothing else. They use the guise of atheism in order to draw people in, which is a tactic of particularly socialists. I mean, that's why you go into any university campus and you'll see whatever the protest of the week is, the socialists or something socialist.
And then there's another overlap here with the atheist and the Marxist and the socialist, anti-capitalist on the left, who are woke and liberal. Just we're getting. What do you call that? We're becoming extreme. We're very extreme over here.
We'll be there and we'll be involved.
Well, what I think we're seeing here is, after this past election cycle, what I've been saying is that the Democrat Party just has to reinvent itself completely because it's rejected. People don't want what the Democrats are selling. I think we're seeing something similar in sort of the online atheist sphere, is that we're seeing it start to reinvent itself as well. And I think that's a good thing.
How are they going to do that, Dave?
Yes.
I mean, sir, let's talk about that. How are they going to reinvent themselves? We'll have a whole discussion on the Democrats reinventing themselves with Chris, because Chris is doing politics again now. Thank you for coming back to the community, Chris, and doing something like politics because
sort of like a non-profit atheist organization where all you do is drive women to the abortion clinic, and like taxpayer funded or something. They would love that. They'd have a field day.
It creates a lot of animosity with people in politics, as I found out. Once I went MAGA, people were like, "Oh my God!" Yet it's so funny. I've had these views for how long?
What it was like to be me.
It's my views. I did it nothing. I saw the same views I had 10 years ago. I haven't changed.
That's exactly. Steve, I want to say that's exactly what happened to me too, because when I first met you, I think it was 2016, I was a registered Democrat, and I did not like Trump. I was voting against him. I was making all kinds of tweets about how bad he was, and I have friends who personally know him from Palm Beach, because I have a lot of friends down in Boca and Del Rey and places like that in South Florida, and they've been to his place at Mar-a-Lago, and so there's a lot of connections there, and I had these reasons not to like him, but since then, now I have other friends who are supporting him and who've actually shown up at Mar-a-Lago, and I also support him. I kicked the Democrats to the curb in 2017.
So SJ like completely flipped as well. She was like, "Well, I wasn't a Trump supporter, but now I am." Apparently, surprise, surprise. Okay. Taking over atheism, yeah. It's a big takeover.
And now I'm declared independent, but I can say
I went libertarian, which is similar.
Yeah.
yeah.
For
I mean, for them to come back, the thing is that I think what's going to happen is the atheist group is going to split into conservative versus the far leftist, and
That's literally what's happening, like right here. That's what you're doing now. It's not like a prediction about the future. It's literally the present. But thanks for noticing. GSM says atheism has nothing to do with preference monitoring. That I can see. Yeah, no, I mean, it's like how affiliated you are with, a certain group or something. Like if you're a member of an actual, nonprofit organization or, an online coalition or what have you of content creators or something, and then you can just disassociate with that and, you just go over here to this circle and it's pretty fluid. You have to be really, really bad to be like, terminated, like, as far as like actually censored from YouTube because your content is that, bad. We'll just use the term bad. It's objectively wrong, right? Or it's against the terms of service at least, right? And that's one thing. And then you have alternative platforms, so you can still go spew your bullshit on, whatever other sites they do the shit on. So it's not like the end of the world. Like, these people are extremely over dramatic about this stuff.
we're already seeing a pretty burgeoning group of conservative atheists.
That's already happened.
I think it already, it already has.
Yeah, go into that more because I think everybody here on the panel agrees with that. That it's probably if it's not fully happened, but it is definitely on its way.
Yeah, SJ, you have not gone far enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would consider myself conservative, and I voted for Trump. My family voted for Trump. We had a Trump flag, literally, that we bought the same day he was shot in July. It was crazy. Like we bought the flag right before he was shot.
I even said
I'm entertaining this. I don't even necessarily believe that he was actually shot, or if he was shot, I would wonder if he actually like somehow had that staged so that the dude would like just graze him, like like I don't know, conspiracy theory in the house. But I'm just saying, it's all pretty sus.
when he got shot, I was like, "This is game over. He won." I was like, "There's no way he can lose the election." And I was absolutely right.
We had that conversation.
Yeah, was I right?
We just said the election's over. That's it. It's done.
People said I was crazy. They're like, "There's no way." They're like, "Kamala's up in the swing states. Kamala's up in all these points. There's no way Trump can win." I'm like, "Dude,
I
I'm telling you."
was on a stream election day, and remember when I picked the exact number
You
and
did?
the exact state.
312.
I picked it exactly, and I remember people telling me that I was insane, and that was election day.
They did. They told him he was insane. And it's funny because I was like, 312. Okay, that seems a little high, but you know what? Not outside the possibility. And people were like, "Steve, you're stupid for agreeing with Chris." I'm like, first of all, I didn't agree with him. I just said I didn't think he was wrong. There's a difference. I'm like, his evaluation of the electoral votes is not that far-fetched. In fact, it may happen, but, people were criticizing us. And what happened? Chris was right. He was absolutely right.
Chris was right.
You ever watch like the sort of election streams from all the leftist channels from election night? Like Alan.
Oh, they're disappointed.
They're pretty one of the bunch.
Whenever I'm feeling sad, I watch them for entertainment.
I mean, but you've got David Pakman, you've got Brian Cohen, you've just got all the
left the party, the Democratic Party. They were, Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard.
He's disappointed big time. I mean,
RFK.
Did you blame Elon for being
political banner here? All right, I'm gonna get going. It's like almost 9:00. But anyway, just caught on to this thing, and this is what's happening. This is what's happening now. Well, this is what happened in the past, but also what's happening now. You kind of get caught up on this little corner of fascinating events in the world of new atheism on the internet or something, and other bullshit. Anyway, just kind of getting sidetracked because this was not on my list of things to do, but I decided to do it anyway. So thank you for joining me. And yeah, I mean, choose your friends wisely, but also keep your friends close, your enemies closer. And be well, be kind, and stay trusty. Thank you, everybody in the side chat. Geo Sam says, atheism has nothing to do with preference monitoring that I can see. Oh, shit, I already read that comment. Well, later then. All right. Rock on, everybody. Keep on rocking in the free world. All right, bye-bye.